facing real consequences. That when you play totish games, you win foolish prizes. The mighty US of A, look how them in disarray, because they forget the first dose of madness. So with the short-term memory, they welcome back Donald T to give that fascist a second term in office. But after they take the bait and they realize where's the fate, enough of them want to change the vote, but it is too late. You see the FA, FO, I see the FA, now they go FO. Plenty immigrants made their choice. Uncle Donald they supporting, but he put their support on ice and themselves he start deporting. FA, FO, I see the FA. So keen, naming the Epstein files, so they now studying like they're voting a presidential pedophile. FA, FO, I said the FA, now they got FO. You see when you're ever wrong, there's no doubt. Even Uncle Sam will find out that what's so in bam bam starts sweet in the mouth. When you shout FA, FO, I tell you that is, tell them that is the cause. Can you see? You see the code? Come in. Trinidadian love all fours, you know that is the truth. So when America trump, we just follow suit. If them MAGA morons is America's concern, well, we present government is easily the clones. From 2010 to 15, the tenure was so obscene, scandalize the land and destroy we economy. But like we miss the free for all, incompetence and bubble, so we bring them back to finish mash up the country. And as they assume their roles, I set a square peg in wrong holes. Now petty people who help them win at the polls. Feel the FA, FO, they say the FA. Alexander's in the world and he make ministers. One is a racist troll and one need a West Indian first primer. FA, FO, I said the FA, now we go FO. Meanwhile Tanti setting up TNT in people worship we in place. She should have let the Yankee army plant the radar in shipping palace. FA, FO, I said the FA. Wrong, there's no doubt. Persona non grata must find out that what's our in bam bam starts sweet in she mouth. Sing it out, FA, FO. I tell you that is, tell them that is the code. Cause when code yellow wins, corruption begins. Where's the real code? Let me talk to the doc. Doc, you had the mandate of most of the electorate. Not to mention the support of your party base. Somehow you took that to mean you could manipulate and dictate the decision of who should take your place. And because you were the top dog, you move like an overlord. You find when you tell them jump, they should have asked how high. You set out to sway the vote, offer up a young scapegoat to just get a kobo sweat after you say bye-bye. You delay party convention, play with party constitution, and figure you could have gerrymander the outcome. But your FA, FO, got your FA, and then your FO. You chain up the young man for truth to snap the election fingers fast. Although every poll warn you that would have be a shortcut. FA, FO, got your FA, now all of we FO. So for your voters who stayed away, you certainly have a part to play. For they feel like they get betrayed, like it had snake in the body. Say FA, FO, I say your FA, now all of we FO. You see when you're ever wrong without doubt, even strong leaders find out that what's our in bam bam starts sweet in the mouth. When you shout FA, FO, and that experiencing a global phenomenon. With serious issues, mankind choose to fool around. Then they go find out, facing real consequences, that when you play dotish games, you win foolish prizes. The mighty US of A, look how them in disarray, because they forget the first dose of madness. So with the short-term memory, they welcome back Donald T. to give that fascist a second term in office. But after they take the bait and they realize where's the fate, enough of them want to change their vote, but it is too late. You see the FA, FO, I say the FA, now they go FO. Plenty immigrants made their choice. Uncle Donald they supporting, but he put their support on ice and themselves he start deporting. FA, FO, I say the FA, now they go FO. But now Donald breaks in because it now so keen. He naming the Epstein files, so they now studying like they're voting a presidential pedophile. FA, FO, I say the FA, now they go FO. You see when you're ever wrong, there's no doubt. Even Uncle Sam will find out that what's so in bam bam starts sweet in the mouth. When you shout FA, FO, I tell you that is, tell them that is the call. Oh, say, can you see? You see the call? Come in. Trinidad love all fours, you know that is the truth. So when America Trump, we just follow suit. If them MAGA morons is America's concern, well, we present government is easily the clones. From 2010 to 15, the tenure was so obscene, scandalize the land and destroy we economy. But like we miss the free for all, incompetence and bubble, so we bring them back to finish mash up the country. And as they assume their roles, I set a square peg in wrong holes. Now plenty people who help them win at the polls. Feel the FA, FO. They say the FA, now they go FO. The two worst Alexanders in the world and to make ministers. One is a racist troll and one need a West Indian first primer. FA, FO. I say the FA, now we go FO. Meanwhile, Tanti setting up TNT in people worship what we in place. She should have let the Yankee army plant the radar in shipping palace. FA, FO. I said the FA, now she go FO. You see when you're ever wrong, there's no doubt. Persona non grata must find out that what's so in bam bam starts sweet in she mouth. Sing it out. FA, FO. Tell them that is, tell them that is the code. Cause when code yellow wins, corruption begins. Where's the real code? Let me talk to the duck. Duck, you had the mandate of most of the electorate, not to mention the support of your party base. Somehow you took that to mean you could manipulate and dictate the decision of who should take your place. And because you were the top dog, you move like an overlord. You find when you tell them jump, they should have asked how high. You set out to sway the vote, offer up a young scapegoat to just get a kobo sweat after you say bye-bye. You delay party convention, play with party constitution, and figure you could have gerrymander the outcome. But your FA, FO, got your FA, and then your FO. You chain up the young man for truth to snap the election fingers fast. Although every poll warn you that would have be a shortcut as FA, FO, got your FA, now all of we FO. So for your voters who stayed away, you certainly have a part to play.
assignment to put we country into alignment. But every time they read us with their ego, it's the vulnerable who feeling that below. Lord, is it ignorance or is it arrogance? I don't know what to call it in this instance. Look at paradise right in front we eyes, but we still want to talk about who we despise.
Tell me where else can we go?
If we start to mash up the good things we know.
Tell me where else can we go?
If we treat we traditions like a Barbie show, you could fix everything on we island. Put gunships on we back like a tyrant. You could put 10 radars all up Scarborough. But don't forget,
this is Trinidad.
We love we freedom, and every citizen will agree that no oppression will be accepted by our Trinity. We come from long days on the ground, working hard until daylight come, so we'll see it wrong to be a financial donkey. Cause every day we see a new taxation that causing a new kind of sufferation. And when you don't create that irritation, you send police to fix with desperation. Lord, where's the common sense? Where's the true intent to make you think oppression is relevant? Don't be shocked, my friend, when we start to bend and you see them placards in front of the parliament.
Tell me where else can we go?
If we little children are not free to grow.
Tell me where else can we go?
If they try to ban the words in the calypso, you could try to stop social media or the taping of police murders. You could rewrite a bill like this also. But don't forget, this is Trinidad. Take one look around. Even lingo and all could see confusions in tongue. And it's affecting everybody. Politicians and Facebook trolls. Even Kaisonians lost their role. The world's upside down. And I'm worried for my country. Cause every day I see victimization, racial and social aberration. We saying is love and need to go wrong, but we spreading this thing like a toxin. Man, things getting so tense, some can't pay their rent, and the effect of this feeling permanent. But what scares me though, just so that you know, is the money we about to borrow.
Tell me where else can we go?
If the IMF start to pull we toe.
Tell me where else can we go?
If we toilet paper start to run too low, you could stress out the sea pepper worker. Take a fool and make him a leader. You could change every board cause it's your show. But don't forget, this is Trinidad. I know it's good intentions. We Prime Minister have for we, but brutal measures would only cause rebellion in TNT, like what caused Cambule in times of old. And it's so the story unfold. It's that rebellion that give we people identity. So careful how you deal with we intellect, cause DNA remembers every aspect. Not every time we cry is just politics. Your mind could start to play you some dirty tricks. Look, remember that honor comes before minister, and that's why we give you so much power. So don't let us down, and don't let us frown. We need to see our 360 turn around.
Tell me where else can we go?
If your promises start to look untrue,
Tell me where else can we go?
if your own voters losing trust in you, you could do what you want with what intent. You could bar talk the independent bench. You could change the country that we once know. But don't forget, this is Trinidad.
Elon says you can do what you want to know. You could say what you want, you could do what you want. But at the end of the day, this is Trinbago. This is Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. And good evening to those of you who are locked on to Constructive Talk. Thank you all very, very much for choosing me, for choosing Constructive Talk. Thank you very much for... You know what I want to say is there's so many people competing. There's so much persons competing for your hearing at this time. But you know what? You choose to be with me at this point in time. And I want to say publicly, I want to say thank you to those of you who have made the choice to be with me, to sit to hear what I have to say. And not only hear what I have to say, but also to listen to Mr. Vasan Baraat and, you know what I mean? Understand what's going on here, his standpoint and his viewpoint of what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. So this evening, my guest who is going to be with me is Mr. Vasan Baraat, and he is going to be sharing with you, Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the world, what's going on, how he feels about what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. So Mr. Baraat should be joining me at 9 o'clock this evening. Mr. Vasan Baraat should be joining me at 9 o'clock. I like to have persons on sharing their views. One of the views, and I did say to you guys that I'm going to try to get Mr. Vasan Baraat on to share his views. And I want you all to hear. I really want you all to hear what is Mr. Baraat's view on the United National Congress. Do you want to hear? If you want to hear, just type yes. So, again, Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to go into a time where we're going to have some level of discussion on the economy, and we're going to have some discussion on what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. So, don't touch your dial. Stay right there.
The information provided by the speakers and or presenter on Facebook and YouTube is for general informational purposes only. All information is provided in good faith. However, Constructive Talk makes no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of this information.
The Constructive Talk team with Pastor Google are asking for your support in their back-to-school drive. Let's help the less fortunate children get ready for the new school term. Donations of notebooks, copybooks, stationeries, and book bags would be greatly appreciated. Show your love, show your generosity by contacting 464-703, and we will organize collection of your donations. Thank you from the Constructive Talk team. And remember to be kind, be generous, and be loved.
Yak and Friends proudly presents Uhuru 8. Join us on Saturday, July 25th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the City Hall Auditorium, Harris Promenade in San Fernando. This year's celebration is held in honor of Mr. Anthony Kamiziong as we continue strengthening our African ties through culture, unity, and heritage. Experience an unforgettable evening of African dance, powerful drumming, cultural expression, and a great food. Early bird tickets are $350 admits 2 and $200 admits 1. Come dressed in your finest African attire for a chance to win Best Dressed Male and Female. Celebrate African culture. Celebrate freedom. Celebrate Uhuru 8. For tickets, contact 684-1792 or ticket outlet at Something Special with Finishing Touch at Ritz Plaza, number 25, St. James Street in San Fernando.
The Constructive Talk team with Pastor Google are asking for your support in their back-to-school drive. Let's help the less fortunate children get ready for the new school term. Donations of notebooks, copybooks, stationeries, and book bags would be greatly appreciated. Show your love, show your generosity by contacting 464-703 and we will organize collection of your donations. Thank you from the Constructive Talk team. And remember to be kind, be generous, and be loved.
All right. So I am back with you. And as I said before, Mr. Baraat is going to be with me from at 9 o'clock. So it's nearly that time. Yeah, what's the time now? It's 8:56. I'll call Mr. Baraat in a short. So, Trinidad and Tobago, so much happening, boy. Sometimes you can't keep up, I'm being real, I told you. Sometimes you just cannot keep up with what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago and by extension the world. There's some people who telling me, Pastor Google, everything that the Prime Minister doing, it replicas what's happening in America. I said, what? They said, yeah, everything. Our cousin who say that that's the president of America, twin sister. You know what I mean? That is the thought of my cousin. My cousin says, that is the man twin sister. I don't know. You tell me. All right. But again, let me say good evening and thank you to those of you joining me on YouTube. I want to tell you thanks. I want to tell you thanks because I've recognized that there are people who are battling for your hearing. There are people, there's a fight for your listenership. And I am just going to continue to do what I normally do, which is to just make myself available to share the information, the relevant information to you, Trinidad and Tobago. That's all I'm going to do. Me ain't going to fight up with nobody. Right? I am here. I've been here from since going in a year now at this time, and I'm going to stick to this time. You know what I mean? I am going to stick to this time. Me ain't fighting nobody for no time. I stick into this time because this time is the time that I believe most persons are aware that I will be on. And I'm not going to fight anybody or fight any entity or fight any group of people to be on at this time. I am sticking to this time. And if you all think that I should stick to this time, you all tell me. All right, yes or no. you'll tell me yes or no. So I'm going to call Mr. Baraat now so that we can have our discussions this evening right here on Constructive Talk. All right, so Trinidad and Tobago, I have on the phone line with me this evening. It's an honor this evening to have on the phone line with me a gentleman who have been listening to me since I have been at the other place, and this evening it's an honor and a pleasure to have him on my personal platform, Mr. Vasan Baraat. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, Pastor Google, and good evening to your guest. You sounded like a minister of government just now when you said in the other place, because they refer when they're in one house, they refer to the other house as the other place.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
when
you're in the Senate. Okay.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
when you're in the Senate and you are discussing something that someone had said in the House of Representatives, you say in the other place. You don't say the House of Representatives. So I'm happy to join you in the other place in any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vasan Baraat. We people don't know, but you one of my fans at the other place. You used to listen, you didn't used to call. When you do call, it is because you want to clear up something. But you used to listen. You used to commend me on my stand for truth, and you like the way I would have carried on a discourse on issues, current affairs, and things that are happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Never forget that we hold different political views, things, but we can tell Trinidad and Tobago I can safely say that Mr. Baraat has been a good friend, in the sense that if I call him, I remember you would have reached out to me when I was dealing with a situation with a family and and stuff like that. And I wanted to publicly tell you thanks for all of your support while I was a media petitioner at another place, as you would say.
I remember you were looking for books for a child from, I think, Labantil or Mova.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. But you know what? The reason I listened to you all the time was, you're right. We may at times have different perspectives and different views. But what I always enjoyed was the balanced way that you put across your views, and the way that you could substantiate what you were saying and what you were presenting.
Right.
And I like that. So it doesn't mean I always agreed with you.
Right.
But certainly I felt that they were not a sycophantic perspective, just based on the fact that you were, one of the sheep.
Well, I'm a shepherd, so a shepherd can't be a sheep. A shepherd have to take care of sheep. Oh man,
indeed.
Oh.
Indeed. But I'm happy that you're on air.
Yes,
because I did miss your voice and your views and your program in the other place, as you say.
Yeah.
But things change, as you know, sometimes not always for the better. But we've got to do what we can until we can make the changes ourselves that hopefully will change the face of Trinidad and Tobago for it to be a better place. I don't think we're heading in that direction.
And really, Mr. Baraat, just before we get into the discussion this evening, because there are a lot of things that people will want to hear your perspective on and your views on. But I just want you to share with Trinidad and Tobago, who is Mr. Vasan Baraat? Now, let me tell you why I'm doing this, Mr. Baraat. Because people may just know you to be a former minister in the UNC government, right? From 2010 to 2015. People may say, hey, I remember, But I would just want for you to share your qualifications, share with Trinidad and Tobago who is Mr. Vasan Baraat.
So just very quickly, I come from a political family, but my mother always shielded us and protected us from the politics because my father was, there was an attempted assassination on my father in the late 60s when he was in politics, and they shot my uncle in thinking it was my father because he was driving my father's car one night. So from that perspective, we were always shielded from the political landscape, and essentially, I went abroad at an early age to get away from the environment after my father was potentially there was a contract out to kill him by, in fact, the Pulul brothers was a very notorious gang who were hired to carry out the assassination. But anyway, cut a long story short, as a direct result of that, I spent a lot of my schooling time in the UK. Went to university, I went to St. Mary's College first and then went to the UK. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I hold multiple other degrees. I have an MBA from Manchester Business School, and I also have a master's degree in law.
Okay.
So that has allowed me over the years to work in various jurisdictions. I have worked throughout South and Central America. I've worked in the United Kingdom. I've worked throughout Europe. I had offices in France, Belgium, Germany, and the United Kingdom all at the same time.
Right.
When I was European general manager of a company called Thomas Cook, which was at the time the largest travel company in the world. I was also head of global marketing with Gulf Oil, one of the founding sisters in the Gulf, in the oil industry, one of the 7 sisters. I was head of global marketing, looking after the facilities of 55 different countries.
Wow.
And then I was persuaded by Mr. Pandey in 2005 to come back.
Okay, 2005.
And get involved and to come and get back involved in
politics. Right.
And it wasn't something I wanted to do, but I had said to him since 2001 when he attempted to get me back I said I would only get involved in politics when I was financially independent and secure.
Right.
And so for 4 years, he kept coming back and persuading me. Eventually, in 2005, it coincided with the launch of a product in Trinidad called Country Pride Flour. And at the time, it was a struggling organization. And the owner of the company, Mr. Shahid Mohammed, asked me if I could run the company and build a brand. And so we built Country Pride from scratch, from zero. We took it from, just to give you an indication, from the equivalent of about 80 bags, what you call big flour bags, the 100-pound bags. We took it from the equivalent of 80 bags to 1,800 bags in the space of probably about 14 months. And we had about over 50% of the market at that stage, at that point in time. And then what happened was Mr. Dukaran left the UNC, as we all know, and formed the COP. And it so happened I was living in St. Augustine at the time, and Mr. Pandey said to me, he said, listen, we need someone to be the liaison between St. Augustine and the party. And since you live there, why don't you do it? And I said, Chief, that's not for me. I just don't like politics. I don't like the rah-rah-rah. I don't like the backstabbing. I don't like, and he said, well, look, you're the only person. It's just to hold on for a little while. And then, of course, Mr. Manning called a snap election in 2007. And I was in St. Augustine, and Mr. Pandey said, well, you've been walking the constituency for a year. You're the only person. And Mr. Dukaran, of course, was the leader of the COP, and he was the incumbent MP for St. Augustine, and he was going to be the candidate in St. Augustine. And by that time, I'd walked the constituency 4 times, so I knew the constituency well. And the rest is history. I became a member of Parliament. I beat Mr. Dukaran by just a few votes, 600 odd votes. Got into Parliament in 2007, and then in 2010, when the UNC, the People's Partnership won the election. I became a senator, and then I became, of course, Minister of Agriculture first of all, and then Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment. And at the same time as Minister of Trade and Industry and Investment, I was also Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Minister of Communications, all at the same time. So I've had my, I've had my share of both the private sector as well as government sector. So I am able to speak to a number of areas with a level of experience and expertise, hopefully, that could, impart a certain amount of information to people that hopefully they can take as being correct and not just speaking from a political handbook, if to put it like that. Yeah.
Right.
I've prided myself simply because I've never been deeply involved in political parties because I didn't grow up in it. I pride myself on always putting Trinidad and Tobago first,
right,
before any political party.
Okay.
And that's how I've always spoken. That's how when it's time to criticize one, I criticize, and it's time to criticize the other, I do exactly the same. As you know.
Yes, I know that. Trust me, I know that. I know that very,
I currently,
very well.
I can't get work in Trinidad, of course, because of my political. No, I can't get work in Trinidad. I've been told to my face by certain government ministers that under this current regime, there'll be never any work for me here. So fine, that's okay.
Are you
that's
serious,
no problem.
Mr. Baraat? Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You were told that to your face.
To my face.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
so
but
it is what it is, but I accept that. But thankfully, I don't depend or rely upon any government for a job. I would love to be here. I would love to continue to work and contribute to the countries I've been. You look at a number of state organizations and the state that they're in, and they need help. I mean, you just take as example Caribbean Airlines, or there are many other state organizations that are in deep, deep trouble.
Yes.
Just to put it put this in context for you, in 2001, 2002, I was employed as an independent consultant to do, together with a team, to do a full-scale project into relooking and re-engineering Air India and Indian Airlines. So I have that background as having worked in the airline and restructured two of the major airlines in the world. But of course, I'm not able to contribute to Caribbean Airlines in any way.
Wow.
But as I said, it is what it is, right? And we tend to continue. I'm not the only one. There are many people who have been excluded simply because of their political views. I mean, we've seen what has happened to a number of state CEOs, Caribbean Airlines, WASA, TSTT, who are perceived in some warped mind to be supporters of the PNM. But you have good people and good resources that are dispensed with and replaced by political lackeys, essentially, who really is just not capable of doing anywhere close to the kind of job that's required. But who suffers at the end of the day? It's the citizens of the country, right?
Yep, Mr. Baraat. Yes. And, I hope that persons are listening, because, there's some people who think that the government of the day only treat people who supports the PNM a certain way. But the truth be told, Mr. Baraat, because you are not pandering or saying what they want you to say, they have taken a position on you, really, Because when I listen to you and I listen to your commentary and I listen to what you have to say concerning, especially, I was the caller who called I-95 Friday and talked about persons who working for $5,000 a month have to pay a rent or pay a mortgage or pay a car loan and buy food and send their children to school and do all the odds and ends. How are they surviving? How are we surviving? How are people surviving? But
and you will note, you will note that my position on that program was completely different to the other two.
Yes.
The other guests, the host as well as the other guest.
Yeah.
And it was simply because I understand what people are going through at the moment. I understand how difficult it is, but I also understand, and I insist upon the fact that governments must take responsibility. Yes, they must take responsibility.
And Mr. Baraat, one of the reasons why you can understand, because I was talking to a friend after you all were through talking, and one of the main reasons why you can understand, Mr. Baraat, is because you were a member of parliament. You had the privilege of serving people, and you of all persons know that you could never balance the scale the way those technocrats or people who have never served like you have served it was chalk and cheese, because they are not understanding the standpoint that you are coming from, where you are seeing the people pay for water, pay for tea and tech, pay the full price, and a parent who is a single parent who may not even have a full-time job cannot pay the price of water without the subsidy, and they are thinking in their mind, Mr. Baraat, that's a one-off. Mr. Baraat, if you come into my community, you will know that it is not a one-off.
You don't need to tell me, I know. I hear it. Listen, I go to the market in Tunapuna every Sunday morning, either the market in Tunapuna or the central market, right? One of those two. I go every single Sunday with my wife. And I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of... you wouldn't believe it. I met a lady selling Zabaka in Central Market on Sunday from Toko. She came the night before. She came Saturday night into Port of Spain and slept in Port of Spain somewhere with her basket of Zabaka. And she came from Toko. And this lady, we're just chatting, and the lovely Pollard Zabakas she brought, right? And we're chatting, and so she's telling me how difficult things are and so on, but the thing is, she actually recognized me. She said, I know who you are, and she turned to her granddaughter, I don't know who this fella is, you know who this fella is. But, I was able to relate to her situation, and she you know what she reminded? I've said this many times before. I grew up to a large extent in my young days before I went abroad in a place called Erica Street in Laventille, because my grandmother was of African origin, my grandfather was of Indian origin, right? There's a place and they owned a shop on Erica Street in Laventille. And in those days, the community really brought up a child. So I must have been at the time between the ages of 6 and 12, right? And every summer holiday, I would go there and spend 6 weeks. And I loved to go there because I'd get the opportunity to go to Sunday school in Laventille. And I would get the opportunity to go up right at the top of the hill. They had a merry-go-round. And so anybody my age will remember living in Laventille in those days, there was one of those little, this merry-go-rounds that you hop on, you spin it, and then you jump on it, and it goes round and round and round and round, and then you hop off after things, right at the top of the hill where the water tank is. And so I grew up, and this old lady reminded me of that because she looked like she had just come from church. She still had a hat on, a small little hat, right. And a long dress.
Yes.
And she's sitting in the back. And it just reminded me it just brought such a smile to my face. This old lady just sitting there. She said, I know you and I remember you, But it's a different, when you talk and deal with people like that, there's a level of civility and gentility that exists with a lot of those people, and particularly ones now who still live in the very rural areas like Toko and so on. As opposed to, obviously, what we encounter nowadays with younger people, and a lot of that, unfortunately, it flows from the behavior of our politicians and our leaders, and how we behave and the examples we set to our young people. But anyway, let's get on with your program. Enough about me.
So, Mr. Baraat, and for those of you who are now joining me this evening, I have as my guest on the program Constructive Talk, Mr. Vasan Baraat, my good friend. Yes, I'm proud to say my good friend, because if I call him tomorrow and say, Mr. Baraat, I have a family boy, things tight, but you can help me. And he don't even ask. He's just willing to help families. He's willing to help in anything that he can do, but to help anybody, he is always willing to. And I'm grateful and thankful to have persons like this around, so that we can continue to impact persons' lives. Mr. Baraat, the first question I would like for you to address this evening, I want you to tell the nation the UNC has been in office for a year and April, May, June, July, 3 months. Is it 3 months? Yeah.
Well, April. Yeah. May, June, July. Yeah, a year and 15 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, how do you feel about the governance and how would you rate the governance and as a person who are on the ground, you how do you feel, how would you rate the government performance?
So let me just contextualize the question you're asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the media review, the Minister of Finance stated that the government, I'm talking about the media review that took place maybe 6 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
He reiterated from his position that the government had done 4 things. Had done, right? Not the intent to do, but they had done 4 things. The first one was that they had restored confidence in the economy, number 1. The second thing is that they had restored or revived economic activity. The third is that governance, the governance of the country was significantly better. And the fourth thing was they had created sustainable employment and opportunities. Now, those are the 4 things, and I'm calling them off the top of my head. It may not have been that order, but those are the 4 things that he talked about. Now, if you look at each of these things and you pick them apart, because they're all very important, the major one is confidence in the economy. Well, I don't think I can remember a time when confidence in this economy was lower than it is now. And you can judge confidence by the level of investments that are taking place, both by the local sector, the local manufacturing sector, and the foreign direct investors. And you will note that nothing has happened in the last 12 to 15 months in terms of either local investment or foreign direct investment. And I'm talking specifically here about the non-energy sector, right? Because that's the sector that we have to grow. Forget the fact that right now ExxonMobil are talking about energy and so on, which is a spin-off from the oil that they found in Guyana, because where they're exploring in the Trinidad in the Trinidad landmass is close to Guyana. So they suspect there may be some oil there, but of course that may not come on stream for another 3 or 4 years. But let's talk about what's happening now. Now, one of the ways in which you inspire confidence in an economy is by encouraging the private sector, because the private sector is the engine of growth. It's the private sector that takes the risk, take their money out of the bank or bring their money from abroad, and they invest it. They create economic activity. They make or manufacture goods and services, and then they employ people. And when employ people, people have money, and then those people go and spend it in the economy. And of course, as a direct result, you create economic activity, and the money circles from person to person, from business to business, and so it goes, right? Now, so when you look at that first aspect of creating confidence, that has certainly not happened, because the first thing they did, and it shows a lack of ability to think through problems and understand repercussions. It's either that or they don't give a damn. Whichever one, the outcome is the same. And that is, when they came in, they fired thousands of people. Okay? And they fired those people because they said that there was fraud and all kinds of different activities, nefarious activities taking place in CPEP and URP. Well, you fired these thousands of people, number one. Immediately as you fire these people, not only do you take away a wage and a salary from these thousands of people, and you take away their ability to spend, and of course, that is aside from the hardships that you create for those thousands of people, right? For them and their families, a major hardship that you've created for them. But in addition to that, these thousands of people spend their money with the small entrepreneurs in the country, the hairdresser, the taxi, the doubles man, the little grocery in the area. They spend their money in those areas. Now, without that spending power, these small businesses cannot survive. So in addition to sending home thousands of people and removing that level of economic activity, you've now basically closed down a couple hundred small businesses who might have been employing one person, two people, whatever it is. You send them home as well. So as far as economic activity is concerned and confidence, there's virtually zero. There's nothing. People are fearful, and worse yet, Pastor Google.
Yes.
When you start to be seen to be victimizing the business community or sections of the business community, the entire business community becomes fearful, right? So when you start to target the 1%, as the Attorney General did and the Prime Minister has done, when you start to call manufacturers scoundrels, like other government ministers have called them, and you label the entire business sector as profit mongers and essentially they've been taking advantage of people. These people clam up. It's human nature. They clam up. They don't invest. When they don't invest, they don't employ people. When they don't employ people, of course, people are at home, and economic activity comes to a grinding halt. In addition to which, remember that foreign direct investors, not all of them who want to invest in Trinidad and Tobago will come here to see what's going on. They will look on what's happening on the internet.
Yes.
They will see that the country has been on a state of emergency for the last 13 out of 15 months. No businessman worth his salt is going to say, aha, that seems like a great place to invest. Because when you read that the country is under a state of emergency, those are words by itself that sends a message to people, right? That this is not a stable place. Think about it. If you were a tourist and you're living in England or the United States or anywhere you're living in the world, and you think you want to take your wife and family, your children on a place to go on holiday, are you going to pick up yourself and go to a place that's under a state of emergency for the last 13 out of 15 months? Right? So when you talk about confidence and you talk about economic activity, you've got to understand a much bigger picture. It's not just about making that decision and not understanding the repercussion, but when you have people who have never worked in the real world, who have never worked at all, they don't understand what the implications of these terrible decisions are. And so that's where we are in a nutshell. We are, from an economic standpoint, we have gone backwards. The country is in a far worse position than it was 15 months ago. It appears to most people that the government is just being very vindictive because they aren't able to do anything. So they're continually deflecting. Every Monday morning, somebody's life is under threat. Every Monday morning, somebody is going to be killed. We've not been able to get a handle on the crime situation. Imagine we've been under a state of emergency for 13 months, and yet still, according to the declared figures by the Commissioner of Police yesterday, we're only about 6 or 7 murders less than we were a year ago.
Yep.
Right? So you've been under a state of emergency for the last year, and you've only had a reduction of 6 or 7 murders. I mean, that is, and then the Minister of National Security said, well, the majority of this is domestic violence.
Crazy.
It's laughable. It is absolutely laughable. And we go from making one, we go from huge mistake to bigger mistakes all the time, and it's being papered over and covered up by the kinds of deflections that you see every single day in the newspaper. More and more, everything is becoming the Trump playbook. Deflect, make up things. Tomorrow it's remarkable, quite frankly, that the population has been as tolerant as they are as they have been for the last 15 months.
Very true. Very, very true, Mr. Baraat. But you would have pointed out some things to us there that I want to get into. And one of the things you would have pointed out is our economy. And Friday you did a marathon, and you would have tried to point out to the nation that, hey, we're not in a good place, We are not in a good place. And I want you to explain, as simple as you can, why we are not in a good place. And explain to us, because there are some people have questions about the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. What we are seeing where the government is taking out money from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. People want to know, is it right for the government to be touching the Heritage and Stabilization Fund? There are so many other things persons want to know. People have to pay higher national insurance. How is that going to impact people buying power and stuff like that? So share with us, Mr. Baraat, about what's your view on this, how to put it, economy that we are in. Or first of all, share with us about the Heritage and Civilization Fund that this government is touching.
So essentially, the government then in opposition made some very outlandish platform promises about what they were going to do, right? But two things in particular. One was with crime and one was with the economy. They made other promises, but the two major ones that afflict and affect the population on a daily basis is the economy because of jobs, and also the crime situations. Let's deal with the economy. Now, the only way you can get the economy back on track is if you do one of two things. One, you either increase revenues, which is the money that government gets, or you reduce your expenditure. Now, if you remember in the program on Friday, both Mr. Brown and Mr. Maguire essentially said that they one of the things they would do and they would agree to do would be to remove or reduce, not remove, but reduce substantially the subsidies, right?
Right.
Now, subsidies account for about 50% of government expenditure. And just to give people an idea of what the subsidies, what is subsidized, well, of course, we know there's gas, there's TNTech, there's water, the RHAs is subsidized, the healthcare and so on, right? So the subsidies go into what I would call and deem to be essential services for the survival of many in our society, which if we didn't do that, they would incur significant hardships.
Okay.
More significant hardships than they're going through now.
Yes.
Right? So my position is you cannot, unless you fix, one of the other subsidies is to public transport, to PTSC, right? You cannot, in my opinion, remove subsidies unless government fixes the underlying problems that led to giving the subsidies in the first place, right? Now, one of the biggest problems we have is the purchasing power of the money we have in our pocket. So it doesn't matter whether you have $10 or you have $1. What matters is what you can buy with the $10 or the $1.
Yes.
Right? So if you go to the grocery and a loaf of bread suddenly becomes $100, it doesn't matter whether you have the existing $20 or the $15 that it costs right now. Because of inflation, it's $100. You can't afford to buy the cost of bread. But if it is that things were cheaper by whatever reason, and a loaf of bread now was $6, and you had $10 in your pocket, you suddenly have more than enough to buy a loaf of bread. So it's not how much money you have in your pocket, it's what the money can buy.
Right.
And therein lies the word called affordability and something called purchasing power. So if people were earning a commensurate salary, a decent salary, then they would be able to afford what's in the grocery. I'm using groceries as a simple
analogy,
cost of living, right? But it extends to things like rent and everything else, right? But let's use groceries as a simple example. So what has happened over the years is if you were to take what's called a basket of groceries and you take the basic things, rice, flour, sugar, oil, butter, and so on, what somebody could have afforded, because of what's called inflation, the prices going up every year, what would have cost somebody $100 in groceries, let's say 10 years ago, is now costing them $150. Right? So the prices of the grocery have gone by 50%, but the person is still earning the same $100. Their wages haven't gone up. So it means when they go to the grocery, they have to make a choice from that basket of what to leave back. And in many instances, with lower income households, when you have other things to pay for, as you mentioned before, you have rent, you have to send children to school, there are many times you have to reduce the amount of basic items because these people are not buying strawberries and blueberries and so on, right? They're buying Haagen-Dazs ice cream and so on. They're buying basic items to live. So when it is that the same $100 is now $150, they have to only buy $100 worth of those goods. And so therefore they'll have to buy essentially, in this case, 3/4 of or 65% of what they would have bought before. And they now have to make that 65% stretch amongst themselves and their children. And this is why a lot of people, Pastor Google, when school holidays come around, their children, unfortunately, the meals that they would get at school, they can't afford to give them the same meals at home. It is a shocking indictment of our country with the wealth that we have and the wealth that we have squandered and we continue to squander. It is shocking that, you have children in this country who will not be able to get a nutritional meal or two nutritional meals per day. And in fact, the recent UN study said that there are over 500,000 people in this country that is unable to get one nutritional meal for the day, And so my point here is this, that we are not focused as government, and I think we are less focused with this government than even with the last government. And I criticize the last government roundly for a lot of the policies they put in place. And I criticize consistently Mr. Imbert for some of the policies that he put in place. And I also criticize him on occasions for his arrogance, when he talked about the fact people hadn't rioted and so on as yeah. But I think this government has performed even worse than that. and there is no clear picture as to where they're going to get the money to be able to fund all of the grand promises that they spoke about. So you asked me about the Heritage and Stabilization Fund.
Yes.
So there are two principal ways of getting the money that continues to put the country into further debt. One is taking money out of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Now, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund was set up for two things. One, for dire emergencies, economic emergencies, like we had in COVID, for example. And the second part of it was what's called a sovereign wealth fund, which was to save for future generations, which ought not to be touched at all. So it's separated in between what's called a stability part, which is to stabilize things when things are very bad in terms of economically terrible, or you have a hurricane or a flood, or you have COVID or something like that. You take money out and use it for that. And then you set aside a certain amount for future generations as a saving for future generations. Well, we seem to be just taking money out of the fund. In fact, it's the population isn't even told. We find out by the way that they've taken money out of the fund. And so they're depleting the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to start with. That's the first thing. The second thing is they continue to borrow money. This year alone, they borrowed in January, they borrowed $1 billion US. But the important thing about that, and the critical thing about that, they borrowed the money to repay an existing loan, but they borrowed the money at an additional 2% interest rate than the existing loan was at. So in other words, the existing loan was at 4.5%. They have now borrowed at 6.5%, the same billion. But just to give your listeners an example of what that means, that actually means in real terms that we're paying $20 million US a year more in interest.
Wow.
Not just in that 20 interest, more. $20 million US. That's 150 million TT dollars more in interest on this loan that we were paying before. They've also just borrowed last week an additional $850 million US, also at 6.2%, which is significantly above the market rate. So again, you have hundreds of millions of dollars that ought to be spent or could theoretically be spent on more essential services. You think what 150, this is over a 10-year period. So it's 150 million TT over 10 years, which is 1.5 billion TT dollars. Think of what that could have been spent on in terms of essential goods and services for the people of Trinidad and
Tobago. Yes.
And therein lies my point about people who don't know what they're doing. They're reckless. They don't understand finance and economics. But because they perceive that half the country supports them, they can continue to do as they please, and then the entire country suffers.
But Mr. Baraat, don't they have technocrats or persons in the ministry who can advise them and say to them, hey, don't do that, because what that would do is it could throw us into a recession. It can put us into more debt later down. So I would advise that you do this rather than you do that.
Yes, they have technocrats who would do it, but the technocrats only have so much say. At the end of the day, the minister makes the decision.
Oh.
And the technocrats, unfortunately, are not usually the kind of people who you would expect to come out publicly and state that I said so and so, I gave different advice, simply because a technocrat will not last very long, as you would appreciate.
Wow.
So, we have a serious problem in the country. And this is the reason people ask me, why do I continue to speak out on these things? I continue to speak out because I want to continue to live in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't want to have to go anywhere else to live. And once I live here, I will speak out about what I see is being or not being done. And it's as simple as that.
So if you were to, because you are now looking, you are looking at where we're going, Mr. Baraat, because this is very important, because I have children, and you're saying to me that if we continue in the trend that we are going in, we are leaving a huge debt for our children.
Well, it's a debt that will almost be unrepairable, because until and unless we put, and I said to you just now two things. One, we have to either increase revenues or we have to reduce expenditure. Now, reducing expenditure for me is not an option because of what I've explained, where most of the expenditure goes into necessary services and essential services that serve many in society who are not able to fend for themselves, right? So so cutting expenditure. Now, so the next side of that argument is, how do you increase revenues? So there are several ways to increase revenues. One, of course, is through direct taxation, taxing the population more, which of course they've done through you mentioned the NIS, and there's some others, the landlord tax and other taxes. Of course, remember they said that they were never you cannot tax a country into prosperity. Well, they're attempting to do exactly what they said you couldn't do, which is one of the issues I have. But secondly, the other way is to ensure that you attract investment into the country, either local or foreign, that then starts to create economic activity, that then starts to have more people employed, that then starts to get more people paying taxes, and so on and so forth. And then you have large companies that you're attracting who will then be responsible for paying corporation tax on their earnings and so on. But we're not doing that at all. We're not attracting people. In fact, we're driving away investors. Now, I noticed this week the Prime Minister and I can't remember who else signed 3 memoranda of understanding, one for data center, one for AI infrastructure, and the other for resuscitating the steel mill in Point Lisas. They're MOUs for now, and obviously they're going to have to do the necessary work with regard to environmental protection and all of the other safeguards that are required. But again, we don't know how many of this is actually legitimate. I saw a video today where one of the parties that signed the MOU for one of the projects, I can't remember whether, yes, I think it was a data center project, where there was a video circulating that this particular company has never been involved in data centers anywhere else in the world, nor is there any record of this company having ever been registered in the United States, which they claim to be. So there are a lot of issues swirling around that we need to be certain. For example, when you sign away, let's assume we were to take this to its necessary conclusion, and we did sign and we did have a major data center here. Then you have to ask about questions with regard to the kind of data they're keeping, how secure is the data, whose data is it, will data with regard to our personal records here in Trinidad be stored here. Other issues will relate to sovereignty. For example, we see what's happening in the Gulf, in the Middle East, where because the Americans have bases in Kuwait and other parts of UAE and and Oman and so on, you see what has happened, that Iran is striking not against those countries, but they're striking the American bases in those countries, right? Are we opening up ourselves as an example if we were to give up hundreds of acres to an American company to put down a big data center here, which which carries very sensitive information? Are we opening up ourselves in the event that the world order changes and suddenly we become aligned to the United States and they become enemies of the rest of the world, as they're quickly becoming for most countries? Next thing, we open up ourselves to attacks because we have an American-based data center in Trinidad and Tobago. All of these, I'm not saying these things will happen, but what I'm saying is we have to have the depth of maturity from the people who are negotiating these things on our behalf to be able to understand the possible repercussions. And I don't believe that we do. I don't believe that we have the personnel in government who understands the repercussions of their actions, including the Prime Minister. I don't think she understands the repercussions of the things that she's saying and she's doing. When she attacked CARICOM, for example, did she really know that CARICOM accounts for $9 billion worth of Trinidadian goods going into CARICOM with thousands of jobs on the line? And when people say there's a diplomatic coup that she's pulled off by having where CARICOM has agreed to take this matter of Carla Barnett to the CCJ, well, it's not. It's a diplomatic coup from CARICOM because they're the ones who had the maturity to say, okay, we'll resolve it by going to the CCJ and not, get bogged down in what I would consider to be a simplistic and nonsensical issue. But we put ourselves at risk of losing millions, billions of dollars of foreign exchange coming in from CARICOM and losing thousands of jobs that are at stake if CARICOM decides tomorrow morning that we're not interested in goods coming in from Trinidad and Tobago. Now, all this nonsense about, we'll go to South America, we'll do this. These things don't happen with a click of a finger. It takes years, decades sometimes to develop markets. They don't just happen overnight. And the manufacturers who've done well and continue to do. And let me say this, I come from the belly of the private sector. Agostini's, which I was a managing director of for many years in the middle 80s, we were one of the first countries in the late 80s, when there was a problem with what's called foreign exchange, and we had to get ECOs in those days to be able to get foreign exchange. Agostini's was one of the first companies in Trinidad and Tobago that was exporting to about 14 CARICOM countries, as well as Central and South America. So I understand very well how long it takes to develop those markets. And when by saying something that is antagonistic and attacking CARICOM, immediately you put them on their back foot, and there's only a bit, it's reckless, it's irresponsible. You should be developing these ties and making them stronger rather than trying to break them apart.
Wow. So, Mr. Baraat, you're saying to us that based on what you have been observing, the government is not handling our economy if prudent enough. They are still they're doing, and you know how it comes across to me, Mr. Baraat? It's like they're living month to month, or month to month, today for today. Okay, what we could pay today? How we could go and take out money for this tomorrow? All right, how is this working out? And you're not getting a true sense of them. Okay, let us really clamp down on this and work on this, because really and truly, Mr. Baraat, when the Prime Minister was in opposition, she said to persons, hear what? She said to this nation, hear what? I'm going to reduce traffic fines. And what I would do is I would put rehabilitation things in place to work with persons to deal with their, their bad traffic, their bad driving skills. Habits. None of that was done. Ms. Bissessa said to this nation, when people were up in arms with the high ticket fare, she said to them, I'll give all you 6 months to get you all active. 6 months have come and gone, and the ticket fines are still there. So to me, really and truly, the opposition is behaving, the government, is behaving as though, hear what? We didn't know how the economy was going. We came in and met the economy in like in a pilot mode, in a what's the word I'm looking for?
It was on automatic pilot.
Automatic pilot. And we now come in and meet it on automatic pilot, and we really don't know how to put it in drive. We don't know how to start this thing going. So here what? We are just going to be going based on, because we are looking at things, Mr. Baraat, coming out in the media. And clearly, Mr. Baraat, they are going back to the handbook of the former government, you know. There are things that the former government were putting together, or putting in chain to start the economy rolling, and they are going back to that.
Well, you know, I don't buy the argument that we have just come into government and we now find this and we now find that. That tells me that you for 10 years in opposition, you did nothing. If that is actually the case, that you only found this out when you reach, then it means that you were just lazy and incompetent in opposition, because you had 10 years to actually prepare yourself. You had 10 years where all of the information was available publicly. The information regarding our finances, the relation regarding our debt to GDP, information relating to crime, information relating to everything was available in the public domain through the parliament or the CSO or the central bank, or the newspapers. So to say that and then of course you campaigned on the fact that you had the answers for all of these problems.
Yes.
You campaigned on the fact that immediately coming into government, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. You've done none of it. You've done very little of what you said you were going to do. And as I said, nobody can tell me that anybody having spent 10 long years in opposition can come in and say they didn't know it was so bad or it didn't. That is sheer incompetence. So I cannot make any excuses for the government. I don't see how people continue to compromise themselves and make excuses for the government. I find it embarrassing when so-called analysts, public analysts, political scientists from UWI make excuses. Oh, well, they now come, give them a chance, this, that. 15 months have come and gone. There's been nothing of any consequence that I have seen that leads me to believe that this government knows what they're doing at all. And I cannot see anybody within the ranks of the cabinet who has the maturity to tell the Prime Minister that they need to take a different course and they need to take advice, because they're all afraid of losing their portfolios. And that is how this government is run. The government is now being run by creating an environment of fear amongst the population, and people are fearful to speak out because of what they potentially think could happen to them. And that, for me, is not a good sign going forward for the country.
But you know, Mr. Baraat, you know that this government hasn't had press conference for how much days now? They haven't had post-cabinet press conference. We haven't heard from this government. I'm going to tell you in how much weeks now. Because, and as you rightfully said a while ago, like like people are giving them a pass for several reasons, Mr. Baraat. They're giving them a pass because it's early days yet, and some people believe that, give them a chance. 8 weeks now, Mr. Baraat. 8 weeks now, this government has not had a post-cab briefing. 8 weeks.
Well, you see, in 1976, this country was declared a republic, right? A republic, by definition, is putting the power in the hands of the people. I want to ask you how much power you think the people in this country has. We have none. None. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate because we have no way of speaking out or speaking up until 5 years has passed. And that's our only way. And that's why we vote out governments, right? We don't vote in government, we vote out, because out of frustration, we've not had the opportunity in the previous 5 years to actually have the forum to speak out. Because when you speak out, it is perceived as criticism. And you cannot, politicians don't like criticism in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay? And they are never at fault for anything. I'm not just talking about this group, the other group too, right? It's always, think about it. They're always blaming the previous group. Nobody takes responsibility for saying, okay, this is my problem now. I have auditioned for this job. I got the job. I interviewed for this job. I got the job. The people gave me this job, and I'm going to get on with doing it. I always say this is similar. How governments operate in Trinidad and Tobago is similar to a fellow who is an acting CEO in a big company suddenly gets a job as a CEO because the previous CEO has messed up completely and he's been fired by the shareholders, and the new guy gets the job. And this guy doesn't get on with the job. All he does is complain about how bad a job the previous CEO did. Okay? Now, in real life, that guy who got the job is not going to last very long by just complaining, right? Because he got the job because the other guy screwed up, and he was given the job because he said he was the best person for the job. He said he had all of the answers, and he said he would make things right. That's what this government said they would do. So for me, blaming who was there previously is irrelevant. But you see, that's our culture. Our culture, we like that, and we more than we like it, we accept it. We accept it when they blame, because that gives them enough rum shop talk. Boys, look what them do. Look when they look. Oh God, look, they thief money in Balize house. They do this, they do that, they do. And on and on and on and on it goes. And it's taxpayers who ultimately foot the bill. But ultimately, it's all about politicians not wanting to be accountable to the population. They don't want to be transparent to the population. And most of all, they don't want their actions or non-actions to be measured. And I spoke about this at length on Friday when we spoke. To me, the government coming into office, coming in on a landslide as they did, should have gone to the population and said, listen, our plan for crime is this. Our plan for the economy is this. Our plan for education is this. Transportation, X, Y, and Z, right? And in the first 3 months, this is what we commit to providing you with. And you can measure us on our success or our failure. If we fail, we will come back and tell you we failed and reasons why. If we succeeded, we'll tell you that we've succeeded and that we've done more than we should have, than where we expected to be, or we've done slightly less. But you will be the judge, because this is how you will measure whether we have performed on your behalf or not. Governments don't do that. The Hansard records will reflect that when I first got into government in 2010, I stood up in Parliament and I said, these are the goals I have for the agricultural sector in the next 12 months. And the Hansard record will reflect also, and anyone is free to look at it. 1 year later, I went into Parliament and I said, last year, I stood right here and I said I was going to do this. Well, I've exceeded it by 50%. I said I was going to do this. Well, I've exceeded it by 30%. Every single goal that I'd set for the Ministry of Agriculture, we exceeded by more than 30%, more than 50%. And that is how you build trust with the population, by being open with them. People know sometimes you will fail. Eh? People do know that. But because not everything goes perfectly all the time. But be upfront with them, tell them about it, but tell them what your plan is and take them along the journey. That's my philosophy. Take them on the journey with you, because they have more to lose than you do. At the end of the day, politicians walk away, many of them with their pockets full. They walk away into the wilderness, never to be heard of again. But ultimately, it's the population and their children who carry the can down the road.
You know, in Dr. Rowley's tenure, he had something called Conversations with the Prime Minister. And
Yes.
many times when he had conversations with the Prime Minister, he would hear how the population feels about things that are happening where governance is concerned. One of the things I remember, and I always refer to and talk about, was when Mr. Edie Stewart, who is the president of the Nurses Union, came to Exeter Spaniard. And he told the Prime Minister, why are you all training all these nurses and not hiring them?
Yeah.
And Mr. Stewart would have pointed out to the Prime Minister how much nurses are coming out from COSTAT and USC and are not getting employment. They are leaving Trinidad and Tobago and going abroad to work. And the system here is grossly, it doesn't have enough nurses, understaffed.
Yeah.
And the Prime Minister would have called up the Minister of Health and asked him, what this man is saying, is it true? And the Minister of Health would have said, well, and he tried to explain, but the Prime Minister wasn't having it. The Prime Minister said to the Minister of Health in front of everybody, sit with the Nurses Union and find out what you all need to do to address that situation. I remember that.
But you see, that reinforces the point I just made. Why would it have, if we had the proper systems and priorities in place, why would that needed to have gotten to a point where Mr. Stewart had to turn up to a public meeting to tell the Prime Minister something that the Minister of Health should have known? You understand?
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying, that but this government is even doing that. This government, when they were in opposition, had countless where they met with people to talk about the crime, how to solve crime, the crime plan.
That was a talk shop.
And they had this man from Shogunas who came. He said he was the person in charge of the Shogunas thing, and he where is he today? Where's his name? I tried to remember his name. He was a police officer.
Abraham.
Yes. Where is he today?
I don't know.
So those are the things, Mr. Baraat, that people are watching, people are looking at, people have their concerns about, people are wondering, what is this government's plan to take us out of this situation?
You know what my biggest fear and issue is right now, Pastor Google?
Tell me.
My biggest, and I'm seeing it every single day, there is a greater and greater level of polarization in society between the races, and it's almost deliberate. And it's like a north-south divide.
Yes.
And it is not good for the country. It is not good at all. I've never seen it as bad as it is now. I've never seen
explain to the listeners, Mr. Baraat, what you mean, because let me tell you something. When you hear the Prime Minister and you hear Mr. Saddam Hussein saying that there is a country after the Caroni Bridge.
Yeah. You see, all of those comments are meant to divide. Those comments are meant to divide. When the Prime Minister stood up in Parliament and referred to herself as a coolie girl, a little coolie girl, or whatever she called herself, those comments are meant to rile up and divide people.
Wow.
When she spoke about, she had a press conference and she said about how all Indians are seen as thieves and so whatever it is she said at the press conference. Those comments are meant to divide. And unfortunately, there are groups of people in the country who will react to those things because they don't have the level of maturity to understand what these politicians are doing to their psyche. And you know, it really is not good for it's not good for the country at all. And I'm seeing it more and more, and I'm seeing a hatred that's developing amongst the races and amongst people, and I'm very saddened by it because it's not going to augur well for the development of the country.
What do you recommend that we as society start to do, Mr. Baraat? Because just seeing that it doesn't augur well, and you are a voice, you are a recognized voice in Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the world, people recognize you, people respect you, people still say, you know, out of all of the UNC ministers or out of all of the UNC persons, I still regard Mr. Baraat a little bit. I still have a little bit of hope in Mr. Baraat.
You know, Pastor Google, in the environment that has been created, it's one of fear, right?
Yes.
There's an environment of fear.
Yes.
And a lot of people are very reluctant to speak out because people feel, you know, what has happened to the owner of Blue Waters because look at what happened to him. It could happen to anybody, right? And they could go for him. They could take anybody and so on. What has happened to Mr. Hadi is a different issue. To me, there is something wrong with our laws when you could hold somebody without charge indefinitely. I can't. That ought not to be the case. I think it's morally wrong.
Right.
Where you could just hold somebody, not charge them, and just hold them indefinitely. And I'm not just speaking about Dominic Hadi. I'm talking about anybody that they hold under these circumstances. But what has happened, unfortunately, is because of Mr. Hadi's profile, this matter has been brought to the fore. And of course, clearly, Mr. Hadi has the resources to try and fight this situation where normal people, ordinary people, don't have the resources.
Yeah.
So they've just got to sit there and take it. But I think it's morally wrong, even though it may have been passed, legislation may have been passed in government, in Parliament. But remember, when you have a majority, you could do anything, right? You could pass any legislation in Parliament, which is what the government has. So you can pass regulations that says anything and becomes law. And so essentially, I think just to be able to just holding on to people and not charging them. If you have a legitimate reason to have arrested them, well, charge them, and whether it's a bailable offense or not, then let the courts determine that. But I just don't think you can do that. And I think this entire incident is meant to send a level of fear amongst the population that this could happen to any of you. So don't say nothing. Those be quiet. You can't say anything. So I think for now, you cannot expect people to put their lives at risk or put their freedom at risk. That is unreasonable to expect in the current environment. So that's why I continue to speak out, because ultimately, as I said, I owe a lot to this country. My father is 99 years old. He'll be 100 in January of next year. Right?
Wow.
And he was born here. He grew up here. He went to school here. He went to St. Mary's like I did. He's currently the oldest living parliamentarian in Trinidad. He's also the oldest living St. Mary's boy in Trinidad, right? And at the end of the day, he was a very outspoken person for
Trinidad and Tobago, yeah.
And I can't be anything else. I mean, I would be. I think that as you rightly said, a lot of people still consider that I have a voice. Like the old lady from Togo, she recognized me and started to talk to me. She asked me, "Where's your security?" I said, "Mr. I pointed to the skies in my security up there, upstairs." And believe it or not, when I go, I love Tobago. Every time I go to Tobago, you'd be shocked to know that the majority of people who stop me and speak to me are old ladies in the grocery, old ladies, and they'll say, "Mr. Barat, don't give up, don't give up, But there's a level of decency and civility amongst those people, and I don't know. I'm hopeful that by me speaking up and speaking out, Pastor Google, that others will be encouraged
to do the
others
same.
will be empowered with the information that they have,
Yeah.
or armed with the information. And even if they call into the radio stations and speak about it, they don't have to give their names or identify themselves. At least more and more people will feel a level of empowerment, that they're armed with the facts to be able to speak out.
So, Mr. Baraat, you were a minister. Does ministers hire people?
No. So the only person as a minister you're entitled to hire is a personal assistant, right? All of the other staff in the minister's office comes through the parliament and are hired through the ministry. But you can hire in your office, your MP's office, you can hire who you want. There are certain categories of staff in an office that the parliament pays for, but you as the MP can hire who you want.
Right, so and as a minister.
So unfortunately, as an MP, what people do is they hire their cousin and their friend and this and that.
But I heard a minister made a statement recently. He said that he hired 551 persons to work at WASA. As the minister, he says, as the Minister of Public Utilities, he hired 551 persons. Listen to him, Mr. Baraat. I want you to listen to this. Listen to what you have to say. Eh? I want you to listen.
I have nothing to hide. I am not ashamed to say I hired, through WASA, this government, 551 persons. I am not ashamed of that. They went through up. I have nothing to hide. I am not ashamed to say I hired, through WASA, this government, 551 persons.
Now, in the true Westminster system that we practice, he would have been fired the next hour, right? because that is no minister has the authority. He may very well have done it because, of course, when you have a puppet board in place, you can make sure that, and a puppet CEO, I don't know who the CEO is here, but generally what they've done is they fired all the senior managers and they put in their own people. They have their own board. So, of course, the minister controls everything, right? But in a normal environment, the minister has no authority to hire or to fire people, nor does the board of directors, actually. The board of directors can hire a chief executive officer, but then the management of the organization is then responsible for hiring and firing staff. Not even the board. The board cannot fire senior managers. That's for the chief executive officer to do. So the minister has no place, first of all, to be saying that, and then and I have no doubt that he's done it because this is the level of interference this government is involved in. I mean, realistically, obviously the Prime Minister encourages that type of behavior because under normal circumstances he would have been fired the following day. He ought to have been. But we are operating in extraordinary circumstances, and that's and again, Pastor Google, because we've become so tribally polarized, there's going to be always, however much wrong that's been done, and this is clearly one of those, you will have people who are defending it, right?
Yes, Mr. Baraat, on our national radio station that belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you have announcers defending it.
Yeah.
That is where we
Yes,
reach, you know,
indeed.
Mr. Baraat. That is where we reach as a nation, people defending that. And you made reference just now to Mr. Hadid and what he is going through. And Mr. I'm just playing this for you to be aware that Mr. Baraat, people are seeing this government for who they are. And the worrying thing about it, Mr. Baraat, is that, as you rightfully said, people are afraid to speak because they believe that if they speak out, they are going to be victimized. They may end up like Mr. Hadid. And I saw where some people took the government to court, to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council is yet to rule on the lawfulness of this SOE. It's
a 2011 detention, right?
Yes.
Yes, they've reserved ruling. Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mr. Baraat, listen to this one. Listen to this, right? I want you to listen to this.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
In respect of the observance of the law, all persons in Trinidad and Tobago, every single person in Trinidad and Tobago, whether you happen to be a funder of the People's National Movement, whether you happen to be a member of the 1%, if you break the law, if you cross that line that would excite the member for Tunapuna, I want to be very careful. The member for Tunapuna, whose job it is to write PDOs.
It's not a political thing. It's not a political thing. I don't know why people think it. And I am somewhat embarrassed by that. Why a person would think such a thing?
Well, then you know what? Whether you are a black man from the Beta or whether you happen to live in Bayshore and are stealing government land and property, I don't know. Whether, I'm just saying whether. I'm just saying whether you happen to be doing that, whether you happen to have called the office of the Attorney General essentially at midnight on the 28th, when the results of the elections were coming in, to say, listen, get that lease fixed up for me now. Right? Whether you happen to be any of those persons, you know what? The member for Tunapuna, I am sure, sorry, I can't call you anything else. The member for Tunapuna and the Minister of Homeland Security will certainly put you on a PDO with Pipey and Rajiali down in Tetron.
What?
Let me see that again.
You know what?
So, Mr. Baraat,
Yeah.
you understand why people are afraid?
You know, this is where our parliament has descended to, unfortunately.
How do we fix it, Mr. Baraat?
As I said,
because you said to us earlier on in our discussion, you said that we as a republic only can fix these things after 5 years. Mr. Baraat, you really believe that we had to wait 5 years?
Well, you see, unfortunately, there are times when people don't wait 5 years, and we've seen what's happened when that happened, for example, in 1990 and so on, because things just boil over. I'm not for a moment suggesting that's the case, but I think we still live in a democracy,
right?
And I still think, although there are no public platforms, because of course you can't even protest anymore, right? You can't go in Woodford Square and hold up a placard. I saw an incident on Labor Day when an old man was asked to remove his T-shirt.
Oh yes,
remove it, right?
I have that. The picture of what the T-shirt said,
and the T-shirt said nothing that could in any way have been considered to be antagonistic or violent or anything or inciting. It said no to the things that we all agreed, no to genocide, no to assassination, no to whatever it was. He was asked to remove his shirt, and that tells you where we've reached as a society, and how sometimes, why people have lost trust in the police service. One of the biggest issues relating to resolving crime is, in any country, is one must have trust in a police service, because one has to know that when they pick up the phone and call the police, that information will be treated with a certain degree of confidence that will allow the caller to feel that information, is not going to be used in such a way that it comes back to haunt him, or reported in such a way that the person making the call will be harmed in any way. And it's regrettable, and this is not just my opinion, it's regrettable if you ask, out of 100 people you see tomorrow morning, you ask them, what's your level of trust in the police service? And you'll find it's very low. And these are the things that cause that, and these are the things that will create the problems that doesn't allow us to resolve these situations that we have. But what I'm coming back to the point is, we are still a democracy, and yes, there is a level of fear amongst people, but I just genuinely feel that we ought not to wait until this becomes a powder keg and becomes like a pressure cooker that explodes. I think there are going to have to be certain people who will continue to speak out publicly like I do, but there are going to have to be a lot of people who will continue to insist through the radio and other avenues, the internet and so on, insist on things being done properly, things being done right, things that are wrong be corrected. Insist on transparency and accountability, and it can be done anonymously. Just to give you an example, look, 8,500 people in 24 hours signed a petition against the data center, right? Now, that in itself is something that, for me, I'm happy about, not because I don't want the investment in Trinidad. I want investments that take place in the country, but I want it to be done in a transparent and accountable manner, that it just doesn't sap resources out of the country. It doesn't fill people's pockets, and then a foreign investor picks up everything and walks away. And we are left yet again with some white elephant in our hands that we paid millions or hundreds of millions of dollars for. And taxpayers have to pay at the end of the day for it. So there's a level of accountability and transparency that's required. And that I'm happy that, that 8,500 people took it upon themselves, and we need to do more of that.
Yes.
And that's the kind of thing, that's the sort of thing we need to do. And the young man, the young man who started fishing, I know him. I've known him since he was a baby, right? I've known him since he was a child. And I'm happy that he has taken on the responsibility himself, because he so cares about his sphere of expertise, which is the environment and harming the environment, that he's taken. I'm proud of him that he's taken that stance.
Mr. Baraat, persons will want to find out if today or tomorrow the Prime Minister was to call you in and say, I want you to be the Minister of Agriculture or the Minister of Finance or the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, would you take up the offer?
Not under the current situation and not under the current environment. No, because I would just be occupying a seat for the sake of being called a minister, and I don't need that. If I'm going to spend the next 3 or 4 years of my life in public service, it has to be that I would have accomplished something for the people.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. It would have to be meaningful, that I would be able to accomplish something on behalf. I would need to know that I can move the needle. And to be able to do that, I would have to have a certain level of autonomy, which nobody in this government has. And the government and the Prime Minister would not be willing to give that to anybody. So the answer would be no. I would not be interested in doing it.
Would you be interested in leading the UNC sometime in the future?
I would be interested in leading what was initially the UNC, not this current group. This is not the UNC. This is like a pickup side, right?
Okay.
Because this UNC cannot. This Mrs. Bissessa, let's be frank, Mrs. Bissessa has been in charge of the UNC for 16 years. And the UNC is far weaker today because it cannot win a general election on its own. This is the reason why it had to go and pick up former PNM ministers and PNM officers to form a government, and then outsiders like the Union and Philip Alexander and others people to form a government. They could not form a government. There's no functioning party groups. There are no functioning constituency executives. There are no constituted meetings that are according to the constitution of the party that should take place. There's nothing. It is Mrs. Bissessa and Mrs. Bissessa only that runs a group of people who are beholden to her for office. And that's what keeps them all together. And when an election is called, it is voting for what people considered in April of last year the lesser of the two evils. And that's the reason why when she was asked continually, well, where are you going to get the money from to do all of the things you say you're going to do?
Oh.
Eventually, and she kept on saying, well, we'll find it because we got it last time. There was no definitive response as to where the money was coming from. People eventually gave up. They said, okay, all right, we're so fed up of what exists right now. Let them just go through. That's what happened, right?
Yeah.
And but you will also note that despite the fact that the UNC or the pickup side won by 26 vote, 26, I think it's 26 seats they've got in Parliament, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that they got less than 30% of the total vote, and which tells you that even though they won essentially by a landslide, they only got that 70% of the population rejected the UNC, despite how bad things were, despite how people felt about the PNM a year ago. 70% of the people rejected the current group that calls themselves the UNC. So that in itself tells you that the population is fed up of politics. Only 54% of people came out to vote because the PNM only got 24% of the vote. So only 54%, 46% of people who were registered to vote did not come out. And I guarantee you, if an election is called tomorrow, the people who stayed home that didn't come out to vote will definitely come out to vote against the government today. And the government will probably lose a lot of the votes that they picked up, the 17 or 18,000 votes that they picked up. But I still think that the voter turnout would be fairly low because the general perception, Pastor Google, across the country is that politicians do nothing for us. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. They're just as bad as each other. And they go into Parliament, they kick in while we are suffering out here. Every day we have to suffer the same problems. I mean, occasionally, like tomorrow morning, no, school is out, right? But occasionally I'll go down south once every 2 or 3 weeks and I'll head down in the morning. And I feel so sorry for people having to leave south to come to Port of Spain to work because it's 2.5, 3 hours in traffic on the way in and the next 2.5, 3 hours on the way back. And that is a huge negative impact on people's lives and family life and working life and everything else. And that's just one little issue that we've suffered for 40 years that we cannot solve. Flooding is another one. Simple little small country like Trinidad and Tobago. But when you put the wrong people in positions that they control billions of dollars, but they've never worked in the real world, the outcome is always going to be the same. And that's always going to be negative for the people of the country.
Mr. Baraat, I want to take some calls.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I want persons to interact with you and ask you relevant questions around concerning governance, economy, and stuff like that. Mr. Baraat, you see us heading to the IMF?
The IMF obviously is a bank of last resort. We still have adequate resources at this point in time in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and in our external reserves. So I don't see us heading there anytime soon. But what I think we are going to continue to do is to continue to borrow more and more money until we've reached a borrowing ceiling or a borrowing limit where it becomes extremely difficult for us to borrow.
Okay. Let's take our first caller. Hello, good evening, caller.
Good evening, gentlemen. Interesting conversation so far. Mr. Baraat, I just wanted to ask the reported drawdowns on the HSF, and you would have seen the report. I don't know if you saw it, but I would have seen the report last week where they spoke about how the fund performed up to November last year. But the fund performed up to November last year, but they were not directly responsible for it. That is one, right? And the other thing is, in terms of the debt to GDP ratio, how does the recently announced $800 million bond impact that? And going forward, let's be honest about the whole Garkara refinery situation. Do you foresee that being operational within the term of this government, and how it would impact them going forward on the electoral success? And my final question to you, sir, is if you perceive the Patriotic Front under Ms. Pandey as a viable option to the two parties that you identify. And it's not clear, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Okay, so the gain on the HSF, which was I think $650 million, relates to how the portfolio on the HSF is split up. So that predates the government, of course, right? So there is the HSF governing body is mandated by law to invest the monies in the HSF in certain percentages in different stocks and bonds, and it's long-term and short-term stocks and equities and bonds. So bonds are safer items. Equity, of course, is not. Cash is the most liquid. So the $650 million gain relates to how the HSF funds were invested, and that has nothing to do with the government, this current government. It was put in law many years ago, and the governing committee, the funds go 25% go into equity, 10% goes into bonds, and so it goes, right? So that has nothing to do with the government. That's the first thing. Regarding the debt to GDP, well, the $1 billion that was borrowed was borrowed to replace an existing $1 billion loan. So that remains the debt. That doesn't change the debt to GDP. But what changes the debt to GDP is the additional interest that we're going to have to pay on having borrowed it at a 2% increase in interest rate. So before we were borrowing, the previous loan was borrowed at 4.5%. This new loan is borrowed at 6.5%, and that's an additional $20 million per annum, which adds to 20 million, which are 150 million TT dollars equivalent. That's going to add to our debt. So that increases your debt to GDP. And also, the government just took another loan for $850 million, which of course will add to your debt. So your debt to GDP, which is currently 87.5%, will certainly increase and get closer to 90% of debt to GDP. The preferred acceptable rate is around about 60%. So you could see how far over what's acceptable is where we are. With regard to Guaracara, I can't see anything happening meaningfully there for another 3 or 4 years. So I doubt it's going to anything that will happen under this current government's term. And with the Patriotic Front, as with any third party, and we've seen the history of third parties in Trinidad and Tobago over the years, it's very, very difficult because I think primarily now elections are very expensive to run. I would suspect that these two parties in the last election might have spent close to $100 million. And that's very difficult for a third party to find because unfortunately our culture is such that it's one of the two. And people feel that the normal rhetoric, if you try to vote for a third party or you support a third party, you're splitting the vote, and the party that you support will suffer. So I'm not saying it's impossible because the ULF, if you remember the history of politics in Trinidad, the ULF replaced the DLP in 1976. Although it was an iteration of it, they essentially took the base of the DLP, but it was a completely different party with different people altogether, with Basti Pandey as the leader. So it's not impossible, but it's far more difficult today to be able to do that than it was then.
You have a foreign caller. Hello, good evening. Where are you calling us from?
Good evening. New York.
New York in the house, Mr. Baraat.
Yeah. I want to sort of partially agree with Mr. Baraat in reference to 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Because when you look at the reign of the PNM for all these years, and you look at the social condition in the country, for years, I'm a strong supporter of the party, PNM. But when I see people living in this kind of squalor conditions, to me, this is just minor problems that the government should have been able to address and solve for all these years they were in governance. And you still have people living in those kind of conditions with a country we say that have so much resources. So, I still want to partially agree with him based on that single.
All right. So caller, can I ask you? So caller, can I ask you a question? Have you ever been to Moruga?
No, I have not.
Okay. So there's a place in Moruga that the former prime minister would have visited. That you speak about squalor, they were living in squalor. And the prime minister would have mandated I'm trying to remember the name of the agency back then to bring them up to speed, bring them up to what proper standard of living should be. And he did that. Yeah. And also I know of some persons who live on the train line in Marabella, who also would have gotten an upgrade in their standard of living. One of the problems I would say in this country is that persons are not making themselves available or aware of things that can bring them up to the standard of living that they need to reach to. Because there's a ministry called the Ministry of Social Development. There are so much handouts. There are so much, well, I shouldn't say handouts, I should say hand up that people could apply for, that people could, and if you can't read or write, there are persons who are there that can assist you.
But Pastor Google, I am saying, how effective are these field officers? Because you're still seeing, I've been listening to talk show programs. And do you remember? And you're hearing people talking about the homeless people in the city. And
the former government was building a building on South Key to house them, and this government stopped it. The mayor of Port of Spain, I could attest to this. The mayor of Port of Spain have asked for the former St. Jude's home in Belmont to house the displaced people. And the Minister Van Dala Mohit hasn't yet responded to his letter. So when we talk about the homeless in Port of Spain,
yeah. If I could make an intervention here,
but that existed for a long time, Pastor.
Yeah, but the minister
existed for a long time.
And yes, and the
prior to this administration,
right, and the government back then, Dr. Rowley, and there is a building. There's a whole building next to PTSC. Anybody who's listening to this program can attest it. Okay, you have identified a problem. The government back then was building a building for the homeless. And in the interim, the mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Chinua Allen, reached out to the minister Vandana Mohit to allow them to partner with the Catholic Church to use the St. Jude's home that is abandoned right now in Belmont, and there's no response.
But you know, Pastor Google, these
just no caller, Mr.
problems.
Mr. Baraat want to say something. Hold on, caller.
Pastor Google with hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think the point the caller is making is this: that why is it that we still have forget two things. One, why is it that we still have so many socially displaced people and homeless people in a country that has had great wealth? I think that's the first thing. So forget the fact that yes, the PNM was looking to house them and so on. Why is it that we have so many of them are? I will tell you why.
And they still continue. It is still continuing.
It is because over the years, our institutions have not worked. And the very fact that you've made this point on the two occasions where the Prime Minister has had to intervene is the problem itself. Because the Prime Minister doesn't have the time nor is able to see every single citizen in the country. If our institutions were working, a Prime Minister wouldn't have to get involved directly to go to Maruga to instruct that an entire community be brought out of poverty. Nor would the mayor of Port of Spain have to instruct for a building to be used for homeless people. The institutions of state will work. And I'll tell you this, you made a comment, and I've been a member of parliament, so I've seen it in real life. You made a comment that there are a lot of grants or handouts or hand-ups available in the Ministry of Social. The bureaucracy involved for people, particularly in that social economic class, in many instances, they can't read, they can't write, they're elderly. They are denied this very same services by the service providers because of the bureaucracy in the institutions. And eventually, they give up.
Thank you. There's too much bureaucracy. Too much red tape in getting those little simple things solved. And I mean, my question is, if you have field officers in the social department, why are these things still existing? They are getting paid to work. They have been appointed. They have been doing this thing for so long. In a little country like Trinidad with so much resources, why are these things existing?
I hear you, caller.
I have a good advice.
In a little country in the UK, they have the same thing too, eh?
No, but you know something? I will say something to you in New York City. Former Mayor Eric Adams, he had a plan to solve the homeless situation in the country, and he did work on it, and it was you still have homeless, but not as many as you had before. I mean, he had people going out to the subways at nights, talking to the people, arranging homes for them, shelters for them, and then permanent homes. Now the health department has a program where if you're mentally challenged and from the hospital, if you're homeless, they put you in a home, permanent home. So all those things are little ideas government should look into. I mean, come on, this is a country with so much. I hate to see those things, honestly.
Okay,
I just
caller.
hate to see. I mean, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for calling. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I'm just trying to find out why people try to blame the government for the people who are on the street. Because of the fact that is something that you wouldn't be able to handle at 100%. Because some of these people, you move them today and another drug addict come out tomorrow. And it is because they're leaving their family home. The family put them out because they're on drugs and all of that. So most of them end up on the street. But the government have been trying. But families too have to try to take care of their relatives. Because this will never stop.
All right. Thank you very much, Mom. You know, Mr. Baraat, I remember there was a minister of social development, Miss Carolyn Colburn, I believe that's her name. And there was one time she came on my program and somebody called her and said, Minister, there's a lady who sits outside Royal Bank. Right? The lady writes. You can see that this lady is educated. You know, as a woman, when you don't feel how seeing this woman sitting there, and Miss Colburn said, I've never observed, but I'll make it my point of duty to observe to see if I notice that lady. So Miss Colburn said one day she was going into the ATM and she saw the lady. And she went to the lady and said to her, hi, ma'am, is there anything I can do to assist you to get you off the streets? You know what the lady said to Miss Colburn? Oh, yeah, you know what the lady said to Miss Colburn? She said to her, the day you take me off the street, you'll make me a millionaire. I want to be here. Miss Colburn said, nah, man. To herself, she said, nah, man. She went to her office, spoke to persons from her office about this, what she encountered, and she asked them. She didn't instruct, she didn't tell. She asked, can you all look into that for me? Could you all go and find out how we can assist that lady to come off the street? And so said, so done. You know what that lady did, Mr. Baraat? You know what that homeless lady did?
No.
She hired an attorney. She hired an attorney. And I could tell you for a fact, she hired somebody who I know personally.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's an exception rather than the rule, right?
No, remember there were some homeless people who were living in Columbus Square and they took the state to court. And the court said that the state cannot move them.
Mm. I think that generally speaking, Pastor Gokul, we have weak institutions in Trinidad and Tobago that really are not set up to properly serve the needs of the citizens of the country. And as a result, a lot of people feel that they're underserved by these institutions. And unfortunately, as you've said on more than one occasion this evening, that the Prime Minister has had to get personally involved. Now, that in itself is a problem, because the Prime Minister or any minister should never have to get personally involved, because it means when somebody wants a driving license, when somebody wants a passport, they pick up the phone, they call the minister or the Prime Minister, and they get it resolved. In developed countries, and which is what we should be aiming for, is for institutions that work regardless of who is in office. And then you quoted another example earlier, where a minister today says he hired 350 people in another state agency, right? And so what we continually do as politicians is we weaken institutional strength from administration to administration, because they become our playthings, and and as a result, they are unable to properly serve the population. And that is what unfortunately has happened over the many years. And we have institutions that really are not set up to serve the people of the country. I've seen in Tunapuna, when I was MP for St. Augustine, I've seen people turned away month after month, week after week, year after year for old age pension. Sometimes women reach 65, 66, and they still haven't gotten their pension yet. Months, years, and every time they go, come back next week. Today is not the day for that side of Curab. Come back Tuesday. Thursday is your day. And these are elderly people, and in many instances, uneducated, and so they need help. And they're tossed around and back and forth, and eventually they just give up.
Wow. You know, there are some people who are on the live, and some people who are WhatsApping the number and saying, and they are telling me, they said, Pastor Google, to be quite honest, all over America, people are being homeless.
Yeah.
All over America, there are homeless people, and they are becoming more and more homeless because people are losing their jobs, people are losing hope, and the reality of it is that even in London, the cost of living is so high that persons are losing their minds and they are losing hope.
Right. But let us not compare ourselves with the worst. Let us compare ourselves with the countries that have succeeded in being able to utilize their resources for the best possible use to ensure that the entire population is able to grow with them and to succeed.
And
that's my point.
And I understand that, and to be honest, Mr. Baraat, when you send home people like from CPEP, you send home people who work in URP, forestry, there are persons who you let's take this call. Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you, Pastor Google.
Good evening, sir.
Your esteemed guest here, Mr. Baraat.
Yes, long time I haven't heard from you, sir. How are you?
Well, I am well in Jesus' name.
No, I say it through my way.
No.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I saying how I feel.
All right. We have a guest here that
all right, so we have a guest here. They don't want to have that conversation.
No. That particular guest is someone like you said earlier, Pastor Google, from a previous incarnation of the UNC that I take pleasure in listening to as I'm doing now.
Okay.
I will see that class is class.
Okay. So you think I could bring back Mr. Baraat on for the for our when we have our budget review?
Yes, man. The man shows his class again. Right. Once again, the programs you were talking about, he's a national voice, and he's, lending us his time to do just that. And I have to say, Mr. Baraat, I really admire your contribution to the national.
All right. Ask the question now.
Hey, I have to lay the ground.
Either praise the host or ask the question.
I want to ask.
No, Mr. Baraat, don't do that.
I didn't hear what he said.
Go ahead, caller.
I don't want the population to mistake me, but based on what we have now as a prime minister, you see how a prime minister should talk. And why I'm saying this, I want to go to where Avinia that he I wonder if you remember he said that his security is upstairs.
Yes.
Earlier he said his security is upstairs, and when he said that, it struck me. I said, so let me go into that vineyard now. Since the security is upstairs, yes? We're speaking about security now, and you mentioned something, Pastor Google, that Senior Superintendent Johnny Abraham, retired as he is, he's now in charge of the NOC, National Operations Center, in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know anything about the history of that gentleman, you will see where this government, main intent is to divide and conquer. I want to point this out to the national population, Mr. Baraat, if you allow me to, is that you cannot find the inaugural address of the Commissioner of Police when he came into office. Nowhere on the internet you can find that. Because the content of his address speaks into what Mr. Baraat has been saying all evening.
God, how are you doing, man? Mr. Baraat, do you hear this caller going?
He said something very significant, and I remember him very well. He said,
Mr. Baraat, wait, caller. Don't do that. That's no. Mr. Baraat, you heard where this caller is going?
I'm listening.
So Mr. Baraat, the caller is saying, caller, say what you said just now there about the address of the commissioner.
The inaugural address of the Commissioner of Police, newly minted and appointed. You cannot find that address anywhere on the internet. And so is the inaugural address of the current Prime Minister.
So, Mr. Baraat, what you gather by what he said there?
You can't find it. All right.
I'm trying to work out where the conversation is heading, because I'm surprised that the contributions of he's suggesting that of the police commissioner, the inaugural addresses of the police commissioner prime minister is not available anyway. I wasn't first time I'm hearing that.
So in other words, Mr. Baraat, the caller is saying to us that this commissioner is saying that he got a death threat. If you listen to the story of hey, well, you're going to know why.
Google.
Wait just now, Mr. Baraat. You heard the story of what the commissioner said about the death threat to his children?
I did, yes. So I read it this morning on the papers. Yes.
Right. What this caller is saying that the address of the commissioner of police is not readily found. You can't just go and pull it up somewhere.
No, he's saying the inaugural address when he was appointed. I'm hearing what he's saying.
Yes, when he took office.
Is that correct?
You cannot find that anywhere.
Why?
So it's the inaugural address of the Prime Minister.
Why?
The President House. You can't find it.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
Yes.
I'll ask you to finish from it because, she quoted some verses and scripture in the Bible that I wanted to just pay attention to, but I can't find the address.
You could find it, man. It's writing.
Okay.
What's your next question there for Mr. Baraat?
That's why I wasn't following you.
Oh my God! He cleared it up with the data center. Was one of the things he cleared up for me. When he spoke about it, the investment coming to Trinidad and Tobago. It's there are good and bad points about it because our data must be protected, and they had a story just recently on social media about that. And I just want to quote scripture for you. I know you like this Pastor Google, because I have to go there, and because he was talking about governance in the country at the time when he started. Now I want to quote from Isaiah, but this is why he said there's security upstairs. And if you're talking about God's business, Isaiah chapter 3 verse 12. And this is the New Living Translation, and the verse says, childish leaders oppress my people, and women rule over them. O my people, your leaders mislead you. They send you down the wrong road. It says to me, Pastor Booker, that when women rule, as they're doing now in this country, the children oppress. That's what that verse means. And since he went biblically in his opening statements, I thought I would just bring that to the forefront and put it in play here so that people understand what is going on for governance in this country. Right? From the top straight to the bottom. That is what's happening in our country right now. And the last thing I wanted to ask Mr. Baraat about is his comments and his views on cross-border gas for Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to Atlantic energy.
Well, I see people celebrating the fact that Miss what's her name? Rodriguez would have acknowledged and thanked the CARICOM leaders for their support. And she would have pointed out Trinidad and Tobago and all the CARICOM countries she called out. And people were very happy that she would have called out Trinidad and Tobago, which would make people believe that, hey, we will get through with Miss Rodriguez. All right, caller?
Okay.
I have another call on the line.
I will be with you.
All right, man. Hello, good evening, caller. Hello, good evening, caller.
Good evening, Pastor Google.
Hi, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening to Mr. Baraat.
Hi, good evening.
I want to go back a little bit, if it's okay, to make reference to the statement made by a gentleman who called in concerning living conditions of some of our citizens. Is that okay?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, for as long as I could remember, now one of the things that we judge these things by is the ability to provide housing, right? Because we speak mainly when we talk in terms of the manner in which people live and the squalor and whatnot. Housing is what we are pointing at. I could remember government building low-cost housing, providing low-cost housing through NHA. This dates back years. So it is not now effort is being made or efforts have been made to provide for persons who would be less inclined to acquire such. So we have had NHA housing provided by government, low cost, and they couldn't get lower than that because I remember that we had the problem of though some of the apartments and so on cost like $40 a month, people owed thousands of dollars because they never paid. Now, these things don't come automatically or in a vacuum. These provisions cost. And if we have persons occupying these houses that are refusing to pay because they have whatever government is in power they have supported and they feel they're entitled not to, how then could government continue to provide? That's one. As we move forward, we had houses being built under AGC for low income. Well, we know, as Mr. Baraat alluded to, there are people responsible for executing the business of these institutions who fail to do their job properly. However, that in itself, that while it might hinder, you have to understand that there is a cohort, there will always be a cohort of persons who will be unable to access certain things because you know the heavy premium we placed on education, pursuing a job, equipping yourself financially to be able to provide, to be able to provide yourself. We have things like pension. We have people who never, and the same persons calling in, they're living in America. No, tell me if they know anything about old age pension, that you never worked a place in your life, but you are able to access these things. I had my own mother as reference. My mother never worked anywhere, but she got a pension of $3,000 when the month came. So all these things are meant to offset or to support from the base persons who will be less inclined to help themselves. We have these social services, and definitely you must have conditions under which you are able to access it. Because in this Trinidad here, we have people who will engage in all kinds of schemes to make use of these things, to double dip, to do all kinds of things and topple the programs. So it's not like efforts have not been made. Well, don't even go in the area of trying to provide for those who find themselves on the street, in spite of all those things. So we know about the social services. We know the availability of them. We know there are certain conditions, certain prerequisites to be able to access these things. But we, for some reason, believe that everything must happen in a way that, I don't know, that we feel government, but people must turn to government now, in spite of all these things, and blame when we see people not being able to help themselves, to what is available. They seem to not understand that people need to position themselves, people need to be honest, people need to do what they have to do. And look, even during COVID, you remember, we had problems when they were trying to reach out to people, and they laid down the conditions under which you can access certain things. People were double dipping and all of that. That happens on a daily basis with all the services that are available. So you find you will always have persons who will seem to be struggling, who can't. And you know, we all know that in order to be able to to provide for yourself, to do better, you have to get up and get. There are too many people. When we look at the kinds of people that are on the street, and educational facilities, opportunities were available to people. Some people choose to do otherwise and find themselves in some of these positions. How do you arrive at just dash blaming our government for that? And we keep talking about so much money passed through the country. Yes. And it trickled down to people. It trickled down by way of these low-cost housing. It trickled down to people by way of subsidies. Subsidies that will allow people to be in a better position. It trickled down to people by changing the taxable income brackets and all this kind of thing. People don't see those as benefits out of the gas, or how they like to describe it, the oil booms that we experience. People don't see it as the reason why they were able to provide those things. Don't talk about schooling. Don't talk about free primary to tertiary education. How many countries in the world could have boasted of that? So, we have it.
All right.
We have it, but as everything else, it's not a smooth road to travel.
All right. Thank you very much, Kola. Thank you very much. Mr. Baraat, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, I agree with the caller that a lot of resources have been put in place over the years. But we have to also remember a lot of the institutions that we have currently were set up a long, long time ago. And we've done nothing to restructure them or reinvent them or to change the way they work. And what applied in Independence Day, just after independence, is no longer applicable today. So we have problems in society. It's not everybody who has the ability to just pick themselves up and get a job or to educate themselves. There are a lot of people, and I mentioned it on the program on Friday, there are a lot of people who were born into circumstances through no fault of their own, who will never have a proper education simply because they were born into a home where the children were not properly nurtured, or didn't get proper nutrition, which may have created problems in its own self. That then meant that they got into the wrong company. They never had an education. Their parents couldn't afford to continue to send them to school, and all kinds of different things. We can't always legislate and say that everybody has the ability to pick themselves up and get a job and do this and do that. The question is, if we recognize that there has been fallout as a result of issues that as a country we've had and we've encouraged even, like, people not paying their $40 for the HDC or their NHA house and so on. If we recognize that those are problems, what do? Do we continue to just turn a blind eye, continue and just let it escalate? Or do we try to address the problem? Do we try to create a society where it's more equitable, that a lot of these young people are brought into the system by identifying them, helping them, giving them the opportunity to get a trade? There's so many things we can look at. A good example is, I mentioned on Friday, I'm not sure if you heard that part of the program, where when I was the member of parliament, but in Augustine, a young woman came.
Yeah, I heard the whole program. Yeah.
Right. Okay. She had 4 children with 3 different fathers. One was dead, one was in New York, and one was in Golden, grew up in prison. Her mother was a drug addict. She was 19 years old. And my question after that to myself is, what is the future for these young children? And this is not an exception. There are a lot of young children in the country who, because they happen to have been born into the wrong circumstances, may never have the same opportunities that I had or you had or our counterparts might have. And we should not judge them. We should try to identify them. And therefore, if we realize that there are children like that being born in the country every single day, why is it not government policy, for example, to find a way to have caregivers go to in every county in Trinidad and Tobago, in every local government area, identify where these children are and reach out to them through caregivers, through people who can understand what the young mother is going through, people who can look at how to help the children. If we identify these as problems, then we owe it as a society to do something about it, because those very same children become members of the gangs that we are afraid of today. These same children, that young child who's a girl might get pregnant at the age of 11 or 12 and go through the same period that her mother's gone through and go on to drugs. So the point I'm making, Pastor Google, we have to understand the problem, and we cannot absolve ourselves as government, because that's the role of government, right? The role of government is to improve the quality of lives of our citizens. Ultimately, that's what it is. And you cannot be doing it for one part of the population and ignoring the rest and hope that the part of the people who are living well will always live well, because ultimately the people who don't have will come and take from the people who do. That's just this simple law of survival. And so therefore all I'm saying is that government that's truly caring is going to understand those problems and not just be governing for the next 5 years or this term. They need to be looking at a 20-year horizon, putting things in place and convincing the population that what we are putting in place here for the next 20 years, we may not be in government. I may not be in government in 20 years' time. I certainly wouldn't be. But you know what? Every 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, you will see the quality of your life improving, and the markers by which you measure us will determine whether we continue to serve you, or you continue to elect us, or you kick us out of office. Simple. I don't see, there's no rocket science involved, right? But that, in my opinion, is how you take a population along with you, and you get them to buy into what's best for themselves, what's best for their families, and what's best for the country, and not what's best for the leader of their party.
Well, you know, the Prime Minister would have said to you that if it's about country, you know, it's
Go
not
to hell.
Oh, okay then.
She said there's somebody who wants to who sees himself as Prime Minister, but I want to tell him, if he wants to put party before country, I tell him, go to hell.
Well, we're seeing that today now, you know, Mr. Baraat. We are seeing that today. It's blatant in our face, Mr. Baraat. It's not about country, it's about party. And it's sad because at the end of the day, Mr. Baraat, there are children, there are people who
we still live in a democracy, right?
You believe that?
The reason
Mr. Baraat, there are people who are on this live who are saying to you that they don't feel as though they are living in a Mr. Baraat, our constitutional rights right now has been suspended under this SOE.
Yes, but the SOE was only able to be implemented because we democratically as a country elected 26 members of a particular persuasion to be in Parliament to be able to make the legislation that determines the direction of our lives.
But
they were democratically elected, right?
Yes, but if they had told us that they were going to do this, do you think that people would have democratically voted for them?
I think people blindly voted for them because they were just fed up of what existed. Yeah, I think that's the reality. A government was voted out because people were fed up, and they voted something else that they were hoping would be better. That's the reality.
What they were hoping for, that, as you are saying, they hope that would have been better. They lied to them, Mr. Baraat. They lied to them. You really think, Mr. Barrett, you really think that if they had said to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, hear what? We believe that there is corruption in CPEP and we are going to stop it. We believe that there is corruption in the URP forestry. We're going to stop it. We think that to put an SOE for crime, you really think that the people trying to be would say, oh, yeah, we fed up on the last, no. Yeah, we taking that. You really believe so?
Well, then we are our own biggest enemies if we continually fall for the same rhetoric election after election, right? Because we do. We believe what we are told, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Let's take this final call, Mr. Baraat, because I know I have kept you long. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. It's me again from Arima.
Yes, Miss Arima.
I think the people voted for them because they wanted 10% instead of
yes.
Well, as you said, that was yeah. There you go.
That is one of the main reasons why the people voted for them. The 10% that they cannot get up to today. But I must say, Mr. Baraat was very good tonight, and he made some good pointers.
Thank you.
That he'll be able to give some of his time to the country.
Thank you very much, Mom. So, Mr. Baraat, you're hearing that? The callers and the listeners are asking that you make yourself available to Constructive Talk from time to time, please.
Well, I'm always happy to join you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baraat. So let me tell you, Mr. Baraat, I don't know if you are aware of the gentleman name escapes me now. He frequents the program. He's the leader of the NTA.
The leader of the NTA?
Yeah.
Or retired commander, something from the
Dindial. Commander Dindial. We have him from time to time on the program. So I would like to have the both of you on one time. That'd be really nice. I know Commander Dindial likes discussions like these, and he likes to interact with people like yourself. So He
seems very knowledgeable.
Yes, he is.
Every time I've heard him speak, comes across as very knowledgeable.
Yes, he is. So we're gonna arrange a nice little three-way call.
Soiree. A nice little soiree.
Yes, Mr. Yes, Mr. Baraat. So let me thank you very much for coming on and sharing your expertise with us and bringing us to the awareness of, hey, we need to stand up as a nation.
As I said, it's nobody needs to put themselves in the line of fire or danger. But I think, as I said to you before, in 1976, we became a republic, and the definition of a republic is that the power of the state rests in the hands of the people. And I think we need to insist on having more power in terms of the direction that our lives will lead to, and not just our lives, our children's lives, because the last thing any of us want is for our children to be refugees in another country down the road because they have to flee from Trinidad and Tobago because of the leaders that we have. If you look at, and I've read extensively about dictatorships, authoritarian rules, how countries become, why countries fail, and so on. Ultimately, it comes down to the leadership of the country, and it comes down to the politics of the country, and it comes down to a very accepting population who eventually wakes up one morning and think, how the hell did we reach here? But it's because they've allowed their leaders to take advantage incrementally of the population. So it doesn't happen overnight. They push the envelope, they get away with it. They push a little bit, they get away with it. They push it until you reach a point where it's very difficult to pull it back because you don't know how to pull it back, and you're afraid to pull it back because you can't pull it back. And that's what we have to guard against in Trinidad and Tobago. We have to make sure, and that's why I say I'm very happy about that petition that was put out, because it shows that there are 8,500 people, and probably more by now, who are very concerned, and they're willing to put their names on a petition to say no. It's not that we're against this, but we want to know more about it. And if we have you see what people fail to recognize and understand, we say it occasionally, but we really don't believe it. The fact is, we have employed these people and we pay them very well to do a job. Unfortunately, we only get the opportunity to fire them once every 5 years. But, you know, in mature countries, you have things like referenda. You have, you know, you have right of recall.
But Mr. Baraat, in 2010, didn't the UNC tell us about referendum? Didn't the UNC tell us about term limits for prime ministers? Didn't the UNC tell us a whole lot of things, and they never did it? And they always, and you know what's sad, right? You know what's sad about it is that they always get a constitutional majority where they could change the constitution.
You voted them back into office, right? The people voted them back into office despite all of that.
Mr. Baraat.
So there has to be something wrong with us, right?
I think we need to educate. I think we need to educate our population a little more on politics, because let me tell you why. Look, this simple SOE, and people still calling for protests, and people don't know that your rights has been suspended under this SOE. Look what the government come and do. Tell you they put zones of where you can and cannot protest. So it is going to people are just. And some people are just fed up, Mr. Baraat, to be quite honest with you. There are some people who have reached to the place where they say, "Yo, hold on, let me just work, take care of my family, and do what I have to do." But it reaching to a point.
That's exactly where a lot of people have reached. I agree with you.
And you know what?
Exactly where a lot of people have reached.
You know what? Today, Mr. Baraat, a memo would have sent out to the Ministry of Finance that all contract workers, when their contracts have come to an end, they are not going to be renewed. That memo came out today. So all the people who still sitting down and saying, "Well, you see me, I got just work and take care of my family," it reaching to a point, Mr. Baraat, where we can't even, you're not even sure if you will be able to work.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I know.
So, Mr. Baraat, again,
but there are going to be people, as I said earlier in the interview, who are going to still support this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they will be on the radio tomorrow morning supporting it and say it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And you know, and all these people were employed, and they all of them as PNM. Right. So.
Ah, boy. So, Mr. Baraat.
Until we mature as a population and understand, as I've said before, and I continue to say, think about what's best for yourself, for your family, your children, your grandchildren. And if you were to think about those things, ultimately you will think about what's best for the country. Because what's best for you will always be good for the country. And what's good for the country will always be best for you. And if you were to think about things in that perspective, and you were to put aside the hungering for ensuring that your party and your leader is in the ascendancy, then you would make the right choices about what to do, because you would then be able to decipher what's right, what's wrong, which is lie, which is truth, and make the right decisions. And ultimately, if you're able to do that, then I think all of us, that's a starting point in terms of ensuring that the power of the state rests in your hands.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Baraat, for being with me on Constructive Talk. We genuinely, Mr. Baraat, appreciate you today and the conversation that you would have brought on the program. And I really pray that you continue. Well, I know that you're going to keep the line of communication open between the both of us, where we can continue to talk and inform and lift this nation out of the morass that it is in.
I thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity. And I'm hopeful that even though there may be many people who didn't call in but are listening, that we were able to spark a little flame in their minds that will probably and hopefully get them to think a little bit about what has been said and think a little bit about where the country heads and what they can do. And it, as I said, it doesn't have to be much. It just needs for them to have a conversation with their neighbor or their wife or their husband or their brother or sister or somebody. And that's how the conversation gets going, right?
Yep, Mr. Baraat. I will tell you, this evening we had about 600 and something people on the live.
Oh, wow.
I'll send you the information when I'm through. I normally do that with my guests so that they would know that they were not wasting time talking to 3 persons or 2 persons or, you know, there is an audience of persons, Mr. Baraat, who want these kind of conversations. They long for it. They love it because the name of the program is Constructive Talk. And I try my best, as you know, and as you would have said about me, to maintain a standard where discussion and talk is concerned. I really can't deal with the and it's attacking this one and attacking that one and attacking. Look at how diplomatic you would have dealt with the tape I played with the minister who said that he hired 500 and something people in Wassa. You said in the Westminster system he would have been fired immediately and we move on. You didn't get personal. Well, you see, and look how he getting on. It's just, we just about educating, informing, and bringing people to a place of awareness and consciousness of, hey, we need to bring our nation up.
And you know what we are losing rapidly, Pastor Google? We are losing a sense of civility and decency. And I think, I think when you look at our parliament and when you look at how our leaders behave, I think that to a large extent is fueling this loss of decency and civility. And unfortunately, we cannot expect our children in schools to behave any differently if the examples that we set as leaders of this country is completely different. It's just not, it's not possible, right?
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. So thanks again, Mr. Baraat, for being with me, and I look forward to having you again. All right.
I hope to speak to you soon.
Have a good night, Mr. Baraat. We'll talk because I have a back to school drive, and I know that you always encourage me and you always support.
Of course.
In whichever way you can. Yes, right? Mr. Baraat. Thank you very much.
And a very good night. A good night to all of your listeners.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, all the best. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So trying to be going by extension, the word you just heard, Mr. Vasan Baraat, former minister in the UNC government. Former minister in the UNC government. Just want to say that. And he would have made a strong contribution this evening on Constructive Talk. Olia. Okay. Yeah, Olia, we need to wake up, yes. We need to wake up. Alright? We need to wake up as a nation. We need to wake up because things are not, it's not getting better. It's not getting better. I want to play this video for you all before I leave, you know. I want to play this video for you all before I leave. Ow. I ain't get the video. Alright. I ain't get the video to play. Cool. Let's see if I can get it to play here. Let's see if I can get it to play here. Let's see if I can get this video to play here. Alright, so listen to this video, Trinidad and Tobago. Those of you who are living in this community, if you all can identify, you all can identify. But take a listen to this video. I want you all to listen to this video. Alright?
Everybody want to curse the government, curse Auntie Kamala. But all they better say, thank God. Maloney has never seen water on a Sunday in a long while. Now on a Sundays, you could fill up your thing. People who are working could wash the children's school clothes. Kamala can't do everything in a year. All the way, take all the time with she go work. Or they don't kill the duck that lay the golden egg. Don't kill the goose. Everybody want to curse the government, curse Auntie Kamala. But all they better say, thank God. Maloney has never seen water on a Sunday in a long while. Now on a Sundays, you could fill up your thing. People who are working could wash the children's school clothes. Kamala can't do everything in a year. All the way, take all the time with she go work. Or they don't kill the duck that lay the golden egg. Don't kill the goose. Everybody want to curse the government, curse Auntie Kamala. But all they better say, thank God. Maloney has never seen water on a Sunday in a long while. Now on a Sundays, you could fill up your thing. People who are working could wash the children's school clothes. Kamala can't do everything in a year. All the way, take
The information provided by the speakers and or presenter on Facebook and YouTube is for general informational purposes only. All information is provided in good faith. However, Constructive Talk makes no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of this information.
Yak and Friends proudly presents Uhuru 8. Join us on Saturday, July 25th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the City Hall Auditorium, Harris Promenade in San Fernando. This year's celebration is held in honor of Mr. Anthony Kamiziong as we continue strengthening our African ties through culture, unity, and heritage. Experience an unforgettable evening of African dance, powerful drumming, cultural expression, and great food. Early bird tickets are $350 admits 2 and $200 admits 1. Come dressed in your finest African attire for a chance to win Best Dressed Male and Female. Celebrate African culture. Celebrate freedom. Celebrate Uhuru 8. For tickets, contact 684-1792 or ticket outlet at Something Special with Finishing Touch at Ritz Plaza, number 25, St. James Street in San Fernando.
The Constructive Talk team with Pastor Google are asking for your support in their back-to-school drive. Let's help the less fortunate children get ready for the new school term. Donations of notebooks, copybooks, stationeries, and book bags would be greatly appreciated. Show your love, show your generosity by contacting 464-703 and we will organize collection of your donations. Thank you from the Constructive Talk team. And remember to be kind, be generous, and be loved.
Coming soon to Constructive Talk Network. Critical Thinkers. It's a youth show with a youth perspective on current affairs and issues in Trinidad and Tobago. Critical Thinkers. Youth perspective on Constructive Talk.
Experiencing a global phenomenon with serious issues mankind choose to fool around. Then they go find out facing real consequences that when you play dotish games you win foolish prizes. The mighty US of A, look how them in disarray because they forget the first dose of madness. So with the short-term memory, they welcome back Donald T to give that fascist a second term in office. But after they take the bait and they realize where's the fate, enough of them want to change the vote, but it is too late. You see the FA, FO, I see the FA, now they go FO. Plenty immigrants made their choice. Uncle Donald they supporting, but he put their support on ice and themselves he start deporting. FA, FO, I say the FA, now they go FO. But now Donald breaks in because it now so keen. He naming the Epstein files, so they now studying like they voting a presidential pedophile. FA, FO, I say the FA, now they go FO. You see when you're ever wrong, there's no doubt. Even Uncle Sam will find out that what's our in bam bam starts sweet in the mouth. When you shout F.A. F.O. I tell you that is the call. Oh, say, can you see? You see the call? Come in. Trinidadian love all fours, you know that is the truth. So when America Trump, we just follow suit. If them MAGA morons is America's concern, well, we present government is easily the clones. From 2010 to 15, the tenure was so obscene. Scandalize the land and destroy we economy. But like we miss the free for all, incompetence and bubble. So we bring them back to finish mash up the country. And as they assume their roles, I set a square peg in wrong holes. Now plenty people who help them win at the polls. Feel the FA, FO. They say the FA, now they go FO. The two worst Alexanders in the world and he make ministers. One is a racist troll and one need a West Indian first primer. FA, FO. I say the FA, now we go FO. Meanwhile, Tanti setting up TNT in people worship where we in place. She should have let the Yankee army plant the radar in shipping palace. FA, FO. I say the FA, now she go FO. You see when you're ever wrong, there's no doubt. Persona non grata must find out that what's our in bam bam starts sweet in she mouth. Sing it out. FA, FO. Tell them that is the call. Cause when cold yellow wins, corruption begins. Where's the real call? Let me talk to the duck. Duck, you had the of the electorate. Not to mention the support of your party base. Somehow you took that to mean you could manipulate and dictate the decision of who should take your place. And because you were the top dog, you move like an overlord. You find when you tell them jump, they should have asked how high. You set out to sway the vote, offer up a young scapegoat to just get a kobo sweat after you say bye-bye. You delay party convention, play with party constitution, and figure you could have gerrymander the outcome. But your FA, FO, your FA, and then your FO. You chain up the young man for truth to snap the election fingers fast. Although every poll warn you that would have be a shortcut. That's FA, FO, your FA, no all of we FO. So for your voters who stayed away, you certainly have a part to play. But they feel like they get betrayed, like it had snake in the body. Say